Chapter 15. Riven POV. Transform. Oriela followed the healer's instruction and shifted, and I took a moment to really examine her wolf form. Her coat was brown with flecks of gold, and her eyes were a vivid green. It's typical for a wolf's fur to reflect their human hair color, and the same applies to their eyes, though occasionally, exceptions exist. Alpha. I pulled my gaze away from Oriela and turned to the doctor. Yes. She needs to remain in wolf form for at least 15 minutes to fully recover. I nodded and sent Oriela a mental message. I've got a meeting, Oriela. Let me know once you've turned back. All right. I smiled, then left the room and headed to my office. That's when I let all the fury I'd been holding back rise to the surface. Just picturing Kaelith filled me with rage. The fact that he had targeted Oriela made me crave slow revenge. I entered my office, entered the code, and stepped into the adjoining room where my top warriors and my beta were already waiting. They all stood when I arrived. Alpha. I gave a brief nod. Sit. They all took their seats again, and I moved to sit at the head of the table. If Oriela were here, she'd lose it over that. I chuckled. Exactly why none of you are going to mention it? They all nodded. We have to protect her, Riven. I exhaled slowly. I agree. But we can't be reckless. We need to be smart about this. He's not an alpha yet, he hasn't officially declared war. That requires his alphas go ahead. He stabbed my mate 3 times. I'm not about to stand by and let that slide. Our pack doesn't go around picking fights for no reason. What's wrong with you, Danny? That bastard needs to suffer. My brother means no disrespect, Riven, Carl said. He's just trying to say that launching a war would involve both packs, ours and theirs, including innocent people. We can't drag civilians into this. What's your suggestion then, Carl? He looked surprised. You're asking for my opinion? I nodded. Yeah. Let's hear it. I think the wisest move is to wait. Go on. Kaelith is going to come back. Sooner or later, he'll try to reclaim Oriela. A low growl rumbled from my throat, knowing how accurate that was. Carl hesitated before going on. So, we stay alert. When he shows up again, we'll be ready to catch him. And after that? That part's up to you. I nodded, letting the idea settle in. The strategy was sound, but could I really hold back my fury that long? That could take days, weeks, even months. The longer we wait, the more at risk Oriela becomes. We get it, Riven. But if we act carelessly, innocent lives will be endangered. I ran a hand through my hair. Let me ask you something. They exchanged puzzled looks but nodded. I warned you all when Kaelith left the first time. So how the hell did he manage to sneak into my room without anyone catching him? Their heads lowered in shame, but no one responded. Well, we don't know. I laughed bitterly. And yet I'm supposed to rely on you to keep watch for him? Don't get me wrong, you're skilled, some of the finest warriors I know. But my faith in your ability to protect my mate is slipping. I think I speak for everyone here when I say we truly care for Oriela. She's a fantastic alpha female, and we're devoted to keeping her safe. Everyone else nodded in agreement. I'm glad you all respect her, but we need to treat this as urgent. Kaelith stabbed her 3 times. I'm convinced he's not done. We feel the same, Riven. We're taking this seriously. We don't want to disappoint you. And I don't want to be let down either. We also have to consider what Oriela herself would want. Why not just ask her? She's on her way now. I turned toward the monitor to see her walking toward my office. She knew the code, so getting in wouldn't be an issue. Not 2 minutes later, the secret door slid open, and Oriela entered. Hey, everyone. Hi, Oriela. You all nailed it. I'm really proud of you. Laughter echoed around the room as she walked over and sat on my lap. I thought you'd call me after you shifted back. You said you were in a meeting. I didn't want to interrupt. I feel fine now, anyway. I smiled. Since you're here, I want to ask you something. Sure, go ahead. What do you think we should do about Kaelith? Well, as some of you know, I'm not one to resort to violence. So you're saying we do nothing? Hunter, sweetheart, You didn't let me finish. He smiled. Sorry. Go on. So yes, I'm not a violent person, but after what he did, I genuinely hate Kaelith now. I can't forgive that, and he has to pay. Then it's your call. Whoa. You can't just dump that kind of decision on me out of nowhere. I chuckled. We need to know what you want. Our priority is keeping you safe. I'm not sure yet. He's here. I looked toward the screen, and sure enough, Kaelith had stepped onto my land. I carefully helped Oriela off my lap and stood up. Brenna, Hunter, Danny, Carl, you're with me. Tauren, Adrian, stay here and protect Oriela. They nodded, and I quickly kissed Oriela before entering the code and dashing out to confront Kaelith. We rushed outside and spotted him trying to climb through the window, so I transformed and sprang at him, forcing him to hit the ground. Nice to see you again, Riven. I snarled at him, which only made him grin wider. Growl all you like. I'll still take Oriela back. He morphed beneath me, and we started pacing in a circle, neither of us daring to strike first, both waiting to avoid slipping up. He lost patience and leaped toward me, but I saw it coming. I ducked, spun quickly, and jumped on him, snapping my jaws near his throat. But he writhed so much, I couldn't land the blow. He shoved me off and we returned to circling one another again. I knew I couldn't take him alone, so I linked to Carl, Hunter, Brenna, and Danny. Shift. They instantly shifted and bolted to my side, standing beside me in a ready-to-strike posture, each of them growling low at Kaelith. He looked a little surprised, but he didn't lower his stance either. We all stepped forward, and he backed up a pace. Suddenly, he lunged at me again, but Hunter was quicker and tackled him from the side, knocking him flat with Hunter pinning him down. Let him up. Hunter stepped back, and Kaelith got to his feet. He growled at us before dashing off into the woods. But I wasn't about to let him escape that easily. I sprinted after him, with my warriors right behind me. Don't let him get away. I pushed forward, never letting him out of my sight, weaving through trees, leaping over rocks, keeping pace without pause. He was just as fast as I was. Every time I gained ground, he sped up. Riven, where are you? Tauren reached out mentally. I didn't stop. Pursuing Kaelith. Oriela's panicking. I'm all right. I cut the mind link and stayed focused on Kaelith until I just couldn't go any further. Halt. We all skidded to a stop, watching Kaelith disappear deeper into the trees until he vanished entirely. Why'd we stop? We've hit the end of our land. Crossing it would mean trespassing. But he escaped. He'll return. I snarled at the last spot I saw Kaelith, then turned and began racing back toward the pack house. Tauren, leave some clothes out on the back steps. On it. We ran back, and within 5 minutes, we reached the house. I grabbed the clothes with my teeth and went behind a tree. After shifting back, I dressed and stepped out to see Carl, Danny, Brenna, and Hunter had all done the same. We almost had him. We'll have to keep extra watch now. They nodded. We'll stay alert. I agreed with a nod, and we walked into the lounge only to be met with a scene that made my chest ache. Oriela was sobbing into Adrian's shirt while he tried to soothe her, clearly not succeeding. Kari. She looked up quickly and ran into my arms, clutching me and crying harder. SSH, baby. What's wrong? Why the tears? Why you got hurt? I was so scared something happened to you. It was just a slip. I didn't mean to scare you. How could you go after him like that? I didn't want him to get away. But he did. She leaned back and smacked my chest. Don't do that again. I'm sorry, love. She rested her head against me, and I kissed her hair softly. I mean it, I'm really sorry. I motioned for the guys to sit, then lifted Oriela and carried her to the sofa. Why didn't you catch him? He reached our territory's limit. We couldn't pursue him past it. He's going to return for me. I looked down at her. I'll end him before he gets near you. You can't guard me every second. I'll still shield you no matter what. She gave me a faint smile and kissed me lightly. What if I ask Elias to come over? She blinked, clearly surprised. You couldn't stand him. I just want to see you happy. And if I can't do that, maybe Elias can. Who said you don't make me happy? I gestured to the guys to leave the room, which they did without a word. Then I turned back to Oriela. I just feel like I keep screwing up. That I'm failing to make you smile. That's exactly why I love you so much. What do you mean? You mess up a lot, but you always try to fix it. That means everything to me. You do make me happy. Happier than I could ever explain. Elias makes me smile because he's a friend. But you make me whole because you're everything to me. I smiled and leaned in to kiss her gently. I love you. She smiled back. I love you too. I could still call Elias over if you like. No, I'm good. Just being with you is enough. You sure? I won't bring it up again. She giggled. I'm sure. And I'll just sneak him in later anyway. You're weird, Oriela. Yeah, but I'm your kind of weird. And only mine. I leaned down and kissed her, gently tugging her lower lip to ask for entrance, and she didn't hesitate to give it. What can I say, we were both eager. Our tongues met and as always, sparks flew. No matter how many times I kiss Oriela, the intensity never fades. She ran her hands over my chest and around my neck, her fingers tangling in my hair like she always loved. I moved to her neck, targeting the spot I knew was sensitive, and kissed there gently. She let out a soft moan, so I kept going, trailing kisses along her neck and gently brushing my teeth over that same spot. Riven, she breathed, but I didn't stop. Our room. Now. Didn't need to be told twice. I lifted her up and rushed out of the lounge. Hey, slow down you two. I froze at the sound of my mother's voice at the stairwell and groaned. What now, Mum? I let Oriela down and turned to face her. I heard Kaelith returned. I growled, yeah, he did. I trust you're doing something about it. I nodded. Don't worry, I'll keep Oriela and the pack safe. How exactly? It's complicated. But please, trust me. She smiled warmly. I trust you to do what's right. Thank you. Dinner's in 30 minutes, be ready. Okay. She walked off, and I turned to Oriela. We should probably go get changed. She gave me a cheeky look. She said 30 minutes, we still have time. I grinned because I knew what she meant. I picked her up again and ran into my room. We made the most of our 30 minutes before dinner. Trust me, it was totally worth it. Chapter 16. Oriela's point of view. Riven. Yes, Oriela? What are you doing? You've been really quiet since yesterday. He let out a big sigh and ran his fingers through his hair. I'm just super annoyed. I almost caught him, but now that jerk is out there free. I know he's awful, but please don't go too far with this. I don't care what you want. I'm going to make him pay, no matter what. Oh, so what I want doesn't matter? That's great to hear. Babe, you know I didn't mean it like that. I think you should calm down and fix yourself before talking to me again. I turned around and started walking out of his office, but then I felt his arms wrap around my waist. I'm sorry. I'm just really stressed out. I pulled away and turned to face him. And you think I'm not stressed too? You always take your stress out on everyone else. I'm tired of it. Fix it. I walked away and decided to go check out the other side of the pack house. I hadn't gotten the chance to look around because of everything going on. The second part of the house is where the rest of the pack lives. The first part is mostly for the high-ranking people. I walked down the hallway and found the lounge where most of the pack was hanging out. As soon as I walked in, everyone went quiet, stood up, and bowed their heads. Good morning, alpha female. I groaned a little inside because it felt too serious. Relax, everyone. They all looked more relaxed and lifted their heads, but nobody sat down. Look, I know I'm the alpha female, but I don't want you to be so formal with me. But we were told to. It shows respect. What's your name? Julianne. Alright, Julianne, I want to play 20 questions with you all. They looked confused. Why? So you can get to know me better. You can ask 20 questions, together as a group. I sat in an empty chair, and when they saw I was serious, they all sat too. You have to say your name before asking a question. They nodded. Okay, who wants to go first? I'll go. My name is Alex. What's your favorite color? I smiled. Easy question, blue. My name's Harry. Why blue? Because that's the color of Riven eyes. The girls all smiled, and the boys made fake gagging sounds. I laughed. Do any of you have a mate? Only Jacob has found his Georgia. And is Jacob all mushy with Georgia? They nodded. Totally. I'll tell you something about the future. They nodded and leaned closer, curious to hear. When you meet your mate, you'll feel emotions you never even knew you had. But it's a good thing. I had a boyfriend before Riven, and I loved him, but when I met Riven, it was a completely different kind of love. We connected in a way I can't explain. How do you know who your mate is? When you touch, you feel a jolt of energy go through you. It feels like you've found the missing piece of yourself. They stared at me like I just told them magic. What does it feel like when you actually mate? You'll have to find that out yourself. One boy chuckled. We're hoping you can soften Riven up. What do you mean? He's so strict. If he hears me saying this, I'm in big trouble. Well, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. I winked, and he smiled before going on. Riven has been colder ever since Lucy left. Another boy hit Alex on the head. Don't bring her up. I looked at them, confused. Actually, I'd like to know who Lucy is. They all looked at each other nervously, then back at me. We can't tell you. Riven said we're not allowed. We're barely allowed to say her name. If you tell me, I swear I won't say anything to Riven. You won't get in trouble. I held out my hand. I promise. He looked unsure, but after staring at my hand for a bit, he shook it. I smiled. This is just what I've heard, it might not be all true. I nodded, and he took a deep breath. Lucy was his ex-girlfriend. From what I heard, he really loved her. Then he found out she was cheating on him with his best friend. She only wanted to be with him because he's the alpha. My eyes widened. Wait, seriously? He nodded. He banished his friend. But his dad told him not to banish Lucy for some strange reason. Since then, Riven has been way colder. Well, I'll be changing that. How? I've got my own ways. Oriela. I turned and saw Riven standing in the doorway. Everyone in the room stood up and bowed again. Good afternoon, Alpha. I groaned. Guys, seriously, heads up. They lifted their heads, and Riven walked over and wrapped an arm around my waist. But I remembered I was still upset, so I took his arm off and he sighed. I have a rule for all of you. They nodded. When Riven and I come into a room, or even if we're just around, you don't need to bow like we're kings and queens. Yes, we're alphas, but I don't like being super formal. Got it? They smiled and nodded. I like you, Oriela. I smiled back. What's your name? Shereise. Well, I like you too, Shereise, I said. She extended her hand for me to shake, but instead, I pulled her into a hug. I know I don't know you guys that well, but don't be afraid to come to me for anything. I stepped back, and everyone nodded. I'll be back later, alright? Okay, bye Oriela. I waved and left the room with Riven following close behind me. Oriela, slow down. Why? So you can just tell me again how much you don't care. It wasn't like that, Oriela, come on. He grabbed my wrist, but I yanked my arm free and turned to face him. What was it like, then? I just want to protect you. I'm really stressed, and I'm trying so hard to make Kaelith pay for what he did to you. I didn't mean to take my anger out on you. I'm sorry. Why don't you prove to me how sorry you really are? How? Figure it out. Elias should be over soon, so behave. You invited him without asking. I raised an eyebrow at him. Are you trying to annoy me today on purpose? Because you're doing a great job at it. I'm not. I'm sorry. Whatever. I walked away, heading back to the front of the pack house. I entered the lounge, and as soon as I spotted Elias, I ran up to him and hugged him. Okay, I missed you too, Oriela. Well, duh, everyone does. He leaned back and smirked. Cocky much? I shook my head. No, just honest. He chuckled. Whatever, you have some explaining to do. I don't really want to talk about it right now. Riven has pissed me off. I won't ask how. Thank you, but you said you had some good news. He smiled. I do. Tell me then. He laughed. I gained the courage to ask Sam out. I stared at him, shocked. And what did she say? She said yes. Or, Elias, I'm so happy for you. Thanks. Finally, after 2 years, she noticed that I like her. Good thing I didn't have to go through that. It would have been so awkward. Oh, thanks for your support, Oriela. You're welcome. He laughed, and we both sat down on the sofa. So, since you invited me, what do you want to do? I don't know. I was hoping you'd tell me. You're so unprepared. I smiled. How about we just chill and watch TV? That could work. Any preferences? It is your house after all. You're the guest, though. You have a point. He grabbed the remote from my hand and turned the TV on, and I just laughed. 2 hours later. The film is just so sad. Elias rolled his eyes while I wiped away my tears. We had just finished watching Titanic, which I personally think is the best film ever made, but that's just me. It's only a film, Oriela. Based on a true story. Okay, I'm going to change the channel because this music isn't helping you. I sniffled. You're so thoughtful. He chuckled. I know. Oriela. I wiped my eyes and looked toward the doorway to see Riven. Yeah. Can I show you something? I don't really feel like getting up right now. Please. I sighed. Okay, fine. I'm gonna go now, Oriela. Seriously, I was going to put on Bride Wars. He stood up. That is definitely my cue to leave. I laughed and stood up to hug him. We'll talk later. He nodded. I'll call you. Okay. He leaned back and walked over to Riven to give him a man hug before waving at me and leaving the pack house. I turned to face Riven. This better be good because I was really comfortable. Trust me. He held out his hand, and I sighed before taking it and letting him lead me wherever we were going. He led me through the corridor, past the gym, and into an empty hall next to it. Why did you bring me here? You said that you love to play badminton. And I'm going to build this into a private badminton court just for you, and I've already hired you a personal coach. Why? Because I really want you to forgive me, so I wanted to do this for you. I told you I'm not materialistic. I know, but I didn't know what else to do. You don't have to spend money on me for me to forgive you. How do I make you forgive me, then? I walked up to him and put my arms around his neck, and he grabbed my waist. By showing how much you care without gifts, but I will take the badminton court. He chuckled. I knew you wouldn't turn that down. I smiled and gave him a peck on the lips. So does that mean you forgive me? I nodded. Yes, it does. He leaned his forehead against mine. Good, because I've been stressed, and I'd enjoy some calming down. I smirked at what he was implying. I can calm you down in many ways. I leaned up to whisper in his ear. Which way would be best? He let out a low growl. We'll improvise. He captured my lips with his, and I tangled my fingers in his hair. He lifted me up, and instinctively, I wrapped my legs around his waist without breaking the kiss. I was too lost in the kiss to realize that we were already in the bedroom until he laid me down on the bed while he hovered over me. I didn't waste any time lifting his shirt off and forgetting everything that happened with Kaelith. Kaelith POV. If only Oriela knew how much I love her, then she might come to her senses and come back to me, but Riven just had to ruin my plans. I planned to go to her new pack and win her back, but what do I find? I find her mated to an alpha, Kaelith. I looked up. What? When do you want us to set the plan in motion? We need to send them a little warning first. What kind of warning? Gather up our best fighters. Why? Don't question what I've asked. Just do it. You're not my alpha. I don't have to listen to you. I narrowed my eyes at him. You'll regret saying that to me, but for now, I have more important matters to attend to. Go and get the fighters. He nodded hesitantly. Sure thing. He walked out of the room, and I smirked. If Riven thinks I'm going to sit back and do nothing, he can think again. Chapter 17. Riven POV. I looked up from the bed and couldn't stop staring at Oriela. She was so beautiful, so angelic, and perfect in every way. Riven, are you okay? She asked. I smiled and stood up to wrap my arms around her waist. I'm great. She smiled back and put her arms around my neck. Why are you so happy today? Well, I'm happy because I have you, and you're perfect. She bit her bottom lip and blushed before looking down. I'm not perfect. I gently lifted her chin and kissed her softly. I love you so much. She smiled. I love you too, so much. I was about to lean in and kiss her again when someone knocked on the door. Why now? I muttered. She laughed and gave me a quick kiss on the lips. Come in. We looked toward the door as Tauren stepped in, looking a bit anxious. Tauren, what's up? Well, I don't know how to say this. He rubbed the back of his neck, and I looked at him, confused. Tauren, what happened? I think you should just come and see. Oriela and I exchanged looks, both confused. I grabbed her hand and we followed Tauren wherever he was taking us. We went downstairs into the lounge, and my jaw dropped when I saw what was waiting for us. Adele. Hello to you too, little brother. I ran my hands over my face, rubbed my eyes, and looked again to make sure I wasn't imagining this. What are you doing here? My voice came out so soft, I was still in shock. Oriela squeezed my hand gently for reassurance. What, so I can't visit my own family? You're the one who left. She nodded. Does your mate know you're a murderer? She nodded toward Oriela, and I felt my anger building. I was following an order. Face it, little bro, you didn't care. You killed him without a second thought. I was getting angrier by the second. It was an alpha's order. You killed him with no remorse. He kidnapped you with no remorse. I loved him, and you took him from me. You're a murderer. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Face the fact. I will not be accused of something I'm not. I shifted in anger, and everyone took a step back, knowing better than to come near me when I'm angry in wolf form. Always the angry one, aren't you, Riven? I growled at her, but she didn't back down. I'm not scared of you, Riven. I know you'd never hurt me. Tauren, get me some clothes. He nodded and walked off, and I looked back at Adele. Since you can't talk, why don't you let your little mate say something? I have nothing to say to you, honestly. I don't know you, but accusing Riven of being a murderer is disgusting. He saved you, and you cut off all ties with him. He killed my boyfriend. He was following an order, and no matter what you say, I stand by Riven 100%. You're just as bad as he is. I growled and walked up to her. At first, she stayed still, but when she realized I wasn't stopping, she took a few steps back and dropped to the ground, so I was standing over her. I snarled at her to tell her not to say another bad word about Oriela. It's fine, baby, leave it. I snapped my teeth close to her face and growled one more time before turning around to take the clothes from Tauren. I grabbed them with my teeth and walked out of the room to change. I came back in less than 10 minutes, fully dressed, and Oriela took my hand again. I'll ask you once more, Adele, why are you here? I heard you found your mate. I just wanted to see how everyone was doing. Well, you know now, so you can leave. Is that any way to treat your older sister? You disowned me as your brother 2 years ago, so as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a sister. That's just mean. Just go, you're not welcome here. Says who? Says the alpha. Don't make me throw you out by force. Well, I'm not part of your pack, so your order doesn't apply to me. And anyway, Dad said I could stay. Dad. He walked into the lounge, and I glared at him intensely. Can you explain to me why you said Adele could stay here without consulting me first? She's my daughter, and your sister. She's no sister of mine, and I can't believe you said she could stay after everything she's done to our family. She's still part of the family. She is not staying in my pack house, and if you have something to say about it, I suggest you leave. Riven, he's your dad. I know, Oriela, but things like this need to be done. I looked back at my dad. Make your choice and make it soon. And Adele, find somewhere else to stay. I'm no longer that immature 17-year-old. I won't take any of your shit. Sort it out. I turned to Tauren. Escort her off of my land. He nodded, and Oriela and I walked out of the lounge and back upstairs to our room. As soon as I walked in, I let out my anger and punched the wall. I hate her so much. I ran my hands through my hair and sat down on the bed. How can she just come here like that after everything she's done? Oriela sat down next to me and leaned her head on my shoulder. I don't know, but you can't let her get to you. Everyone knows that you were only following an order. No matter what anyone says, you're not a murderer. I sighed and lay back on the bed in frustration. Sometimes I wish I never followed the order. She looked at me. But if you didn't, you might not have been who you are today. What's so great about who I am now? I'm messed up, Oriela, because of the choices I made. She sighed, moved so she was straddling me, and placed her hands on my chest. You're a great guy, Riven. You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. Do you want to know what was so great about your choices? I nodded, and she rested her forehead against mine. It made you stronger, and who knows, maybe we wouldn't have met so soon, if at all. Everything happens for a reason. I smiled and gave her a quick kiss on the lips. I don't know what I'd do without you. Neither do I. I laughed, and she was about to move off of me, but I grabbed her waist to stop her. Where do you think you're going? Well, I was going to go downstairs. Well, I'm not letting you go. She raised an eyebrow at me. And why is that? I leaned up and pressed my lips to hers, showing her what I meant. I gently bit her bottom lip, and she parted her lips for me without hesitation, and once again, I felt like fireworks were going off inside me. I flipped us over, so now I was hovering above her. Didn't like me being in control? I smiled. I loved it, I just enjoy being in control more. She wrapped her arms around my neck and pulled me closer so that I could feel her lips brushing against mine. Take control then, she said in a seductive tone. I let out a low growl before closing the gap and kissing her again, while she tangled her fingers in my hair. Just as things were getting good, there was a knock on the door, so I pulled away from her. Someone is always interrupting us. We'll continue this later. She gave me a quick kiss on the lips. I'll hold you to that. I smiled and moved off of her. Enter. The door opened, and Tauren walked in. What is it now? Adele is refusing to leave the territory, and Kaelith has sent us a warning. What kind of warning? It's better if you see for yourself. I sighed, and Oriela stood up, taking my hand. We walked out of the room and followed Brenna into the garden, where I saw Danny and Hunter, both unconscious and in wolf form. What the hell happened? They spotted Kaelith running, so they chased him, but apparently, that's what he wanted. They were attacked by 6 wolves. Hunter got bit in the back leg and his side, and Danny had a close bite to his neck. They were both knocked unconscious. This is the last straw. I'm not returning the warning. I don't care what his alpha may say, he's declared war. We told you, Riven, we can't risk innocent lives. So, is my little brother going to kill another innocent life? I angrily turned to face Adele and narrowed my eyes at her. Why are you still here? I'm staying here, remember? Seeing as I can't throw you out, I'll allow you to stay, but you will stay in the second part of the pack house and stay out of my way. I walked up to her, glaring down since she was shorter than me. You may be older than me, but this is my pack and my pack house. If you want to stay here, you'll follow my rules. Do I make myself clear? Sure thing. She reached out to touch my shoulder, but I slapped her hand away. Don't you dare touch me, not after what you've put me through. Step out of line once, and I'll throw you out faster than you can blink. Brenna, show her to a room. He nodded, and him and Adele walked off. I ran my hands through my hair and turned back to face Tauren and Oriela. Call another meeting in 10 minutes. This needs to be dealt with, and if Kaelith wants a war, then he'll get one, I can assure you. 10 minutes later. According to the rules, if the alpha of another pack physically harms one of your pack members deliberately, they have declared war. But if it is the alpha's offspring that has declared it, the war can't happen unless both alphas know about it. Alistair hasn't declared war personally, and until he does, we can't proceed. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. So, he can just harm my mate and my pack members over and over, but I can't fight back. That's the way it goes. Until Alistair declares it, you as an alpha cannot retaliate. For fuck's sake. That's ridiculous. My mate is in danger the longer we wait. It's the rules. Fine then, you know what? We're just going to send him back an even harder warning. Don't do anything stupid, Riven. It won't be stupid, it'll be reasonable. Your reasonable and our stupid is the same thing. If he didn't hurt Oriela, this wouldn't be happening. But he did, so what I do next has been brought on by his actions. They nodded. What do you want us to do? I leaned forward and began explaining my plan. Once I send Kaelith my little message, he won't know what hit him. Chapter 18. Oriela's POV. Riven, where's Shereise? She's in the other part of the pack house. Why? I want to take her out today. Why just her? I don't know, I feel like I've connected with her in some way, so I want to spend time with her. He smiled. Can I come with? Don't you have pack duties to take care of? Yeah, but I can get Torren to handle it. I'd really love to spend some time with you. I smiled and wrapped my arms around his neck, and he held my waist. I'd love that. He smiled and kissed me on the lips. Let's go find Shereise, then. I nodded, unwrapping my arms from around his neck and taking his hand so we could walk through the pack house to find her. We walked into the second lounge, and everyone turned to look at us. Hi Oriela, hi Riven. Hey guys, you good? They nodded. Yeah, but you never came back. Sorry about that. The alpha kept me longer than I expected. Riven chuckled, and I smiled. Where's Shereise? In the garden. I nodded and pulled Riven toward the garden. When we got there, we saw Shereise being held against the wall by her wrists, and I immediately got angry. Would you like to explain what you're doing? The guy stepped away from her, and she looked down at the ground. Alphas, he said. He bowed down, and I walked up to him. Raise your head. He lifted his head and took a small step back when he saw my expression. Explain. It was nothing. Bullshit. Tell me the truth. Oriela. I turned to Shereise. It's fine, it was nothing. You don't have to lie to me, Shereise. It's fine, honestly. I nodded and turned back to face the boy. Name? Tyler. Well, Tyler, if I ever catch you with your hands on Shereise again, there will be consequences. Do you hear me? He nodded. I hear you. Good. Go inside. He nodded and practically ran back into the house. I turned back to face Shereise and Riven, who was standing in the doorway. Are you sure you don't want to tell me what happened? She nodded. It was just a misunderstanding, I promise. As long as you're sure. But we actually came here to ask if you wanted to go shopping today. Are you serious? I nodded. Yep, unless you don't want to go. Why do you want to take me? Why not Julianne? I smiled. I can't explain, but there's something about you that I've connected with. She smiled. Riven, are you coming too? I looked at Riven, and he smiled and nodded. If it's okay with you. Yeah, of course, she is your girlfriend after all. I stretched my hand out, and Riven walked over and took it. Shereise smiled at us. You two are really cute. What you mean to say is that I'm cute, Oriela is okay. She laughed, and I hit his chest playfully. I'm joking, baby. You're beautiful. I smiled and gave him a quick kiss on the lips. We should go then. What car do you want to take, Shereise? Depends on what I'm choosing from. Go to the front of the house and have a look. We'll be out in a minute. She nodded and walked into the pack house. I turned to face Riven. I want someone to keep an eye on Tyler. He nodded. I'll sort it. I gently squeezed his hand and led him into the house so we could walk to the front. We walked out of the house and saw Shereise sitting in the Kia Sportage. She loves my car better. He chuckled. It's our car. Since when? You bought it for me, remember? Okay, fair enough. I stuck my tongue out at him and ran to the passenger side of the car while he got in the driver's seat. I guess I'm paying for today's shopping trip. Only if you love me. You can't use that card on me. You hear that, Shereise? A man unwilling to pay for a woman's shopping trip. She smirked. Tut tut tut, Riven. Rule number 1, never say no to a woman when she wants to go shopping with your money. He smiled. And why is that? Because it will turn out horrible for you. I laughed, and she winked at me. Riven just chuckled and shook his head while continuing to drive. 3 hours later. Can we please go and get some food? I sighed and shook my head. Men, always thinking about food. Shereise giggled, and Riven wrapped his arm around my waist with one hand while holding the shopping bags in the other. What do you want to eat, Shah? She shrugged. I'm not picky. Well, I know Oriela likes KFC. I love KFC. He chuckled. Well, KFC it is then. I smiled, and Shereise ran ahead to KFC like a kid in a toy store. We just walked behind her. When we finally got there, we sat at an available table. What should I order? My usual, Shereise. Surprisingly, now that I'm here, I'm not that hungry. I laughed and shook my head. Typical. She smiled. But I wouldn't want Riven money to go to waste, so I'll have a milkshake. You're learning so fast. I wiped away a fake tear, and Riven chuckled. As you wish, my ladies. We smiled, and Riven walked off to order. I turned serious and looked at Shereise. So, now would you like to tell me what happened with you and Tyler? She sighed. It was nothing. You keep telling me that, and the more you say it, the more I think it's a lie. Okay, fine. To put it bluntly, when I wouldn't kiss him, he grabbed my wrists and tried to forcefully kiss me, but that's when you came out. My eyes glowed red. He forced himself on you? He only tried to kiss me, nothing else. When I pictured Tyler holding Shereise's wrists, the image of that guy in the toilets immediately came to mind, and I could feel the rage wanting to break free. Oriela. I heard her voice, but I couldn't find the words to say. I was so angry. I knew I was in a public place, but I just couldn't control the fury inside me. Just as I thought I might lose control and storm out of the center to shift, I felt soft lips press against mine. All the anger melted away, and I relaxed into the kiss. I didn't take it too far, though, so I pulled away. Riven smiled and held up the KFC bag. I got your usual. I smiled and gave Shereise an apologetic look. She nodded in response. Sorry. It's fine, but why did you get so angry? I don't like the thought of someone forcing you to do something you don't want to do. It was no big deal, honestly. Shah, I never actually asked, how old are you? 16. How old is Tyler? 17, turning 18 in the summer. We're going home. I stood up and walked out of KFC with Riven following me. Shereise ran up to me, grabbing my wrist, making me face her. Please don't do anything. I sighed. Why? Because I don't want to cause any trouble. You won't be, Shah. I just don't want anything like that to happen to you again. Why do you care about me so much? No one else does. Let's walk and talk. She nodded, and I took Riven's hand in mine. We all walked together. So, why do you care so much? I may not know you well, but I feel like I need to protect you. You're like a sister to me, even though we've only known each other for a few days. Really? I nodded. I want to ask you a question. Go on. I know this is random, but are you scared of Riven? I glanced at Riven, who was looking at Shereise expectantly, and Shereise hesitated before answering. He's a strict alpha. Everyone's scared of him. He's a softie on the inside though, aren't you, baby? He smiled and nodded. I'm only strict when I have to be. Ever since Lucy left, you've been stricter. I could see Riven tense up at the mention of her name. Who is Lucy, Riven? Someone you don't need to know about. We'll talk about this later. He sighed and nodded, and I turned back to face Shereise. Okay, well, we still have time to spare. Anywhere you want to go? I can't really think of anything. That new film is out, you know, the one with districts. Oh, the Hunger Games? Yeah, that one. We could go see that if you want. As long as you and Riven keep your hands off each other. I laughed, and Riven chuckled. Just don't watch us. She groaned. Riven, don't put that image in my head. She ran to the car, and I laughed. I was going to continue walking to the car when Riven twisted me around and kissed me. I was surprised at first, but it didn't take long for me to kiss him back. He grabbed my waist, and I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer. Come on, lovebirds. I smiled against Riven's lips and pulled away. Thought I'd kiss you before I wouldn't be allowed to touch you. She won't know if you do, I said seductively, running my hand down his chest. He let out a low growl, and just as he was about to lean down to kiss me again, we heard Shereise. Riven, don't even think about kissing her again. I laughed and gave Riven a quick peck on the lips before we walked the short distance to the car. I got in the passenger side while he put the shopping bags in the boot and got in the driver's side. Finished making out. I smiled and turned to face Shereise. For now, yes. She laughed. I'm not like this with my boyfriend. Yeah, but we're not just boyfriend and girlfriend. We're mates, and when you find your mate, you'll be exactly the same. I winked at her, and she smiled. I turned back around, and we all lapsed into a comfortable silence. After the film, back at the pack house. The film was so great. I would totally watch that again. I know, right? Riven chuckled and shook his head. Women. I playfully hit his arm. You know you love us. Of course I do, but I was hardly watching the film. He leaned down next to my ear. For many reasons. I blushed and leaned into his chest while Shereise giggled. Well, that's my cue to leave. I laughed and turned to face her. Come on then. I took Riven's hand again, and we followed Shereise back to the second lounge. When we entered, everyone went silent and turned to face us. Hey guys. Where did you take Shereise? Shopping. Any complaints? Everyone shook their heads, and I looked toward Tyler, gesturing for him to stand up. You're coming with us. We need to have a little chat. He nodded and stood up, and Shereise shook her head slightly. I sent her a mind message. I'm sorry, Shah, but he needs to be spoken to. I understand. Please don't do anything drastic, though. I won't do anything you don't want me to do, I promise. She smiled, and I stepped forward to give her a hug. Thank you for today, Oriela. I really appreciate it. It's fine. I'll make sure Torren gives you my number. But right now, I need to talk to Tyler. She stepped back and nodded. Will you come back? Of course I will, shake on it. I reached my hand out, and she smiled, taking my hand and shaking it. See you later. She nodded, and I took Riven's hand before turning to face Tyler. Follow us. He nodded, and Riven and I walked out of the lounge with him following behind us. We entered Riven's study and both took a seat, while Tyler sat down in the chair across from us. I'm going to get straight to the point. We want an explanation about what happened with Shereise earlier. Nothing happened. Listen up, Tyler. We're not playing around here, and to be honest, Oriela is being very lenient with you right now. If you don't explain what happened, I'm going to have to take action. He gulped, and I mentally thanked Riven for handling this. She wouldn't kiss me, so I tried to make her. Who are you to her? Her ex. Exactly, keyword being ex. You had no right to force her to kiss you. If she didn't want to, then she didn't want to, simple as that. I love her though. And that's how you're showing it. If that's how you prove love, then you have no clue what love actually is. You're only 1 year older than me. How do you know what love is? I could see Riven about to speak, so I placed a hand on his leg to stop him. You think I don't know what love is? You think I haven't felt love before? My mate is sitting right next to me, Tyler, and you have the nerve to ask me if I know what love is? It wasn't like that. It was nothing, it wasn't like that. Stop with the excuses, because I can see through you like glass. I never knew you would care about Shereise this much to defend her like this. Even if I didn't, you had no right to do what you did. Do you think you can just force her to do whatever you want? I'm not going to stand for it. Riven put his arm around my shoulder to calm me down, and it worked instantly. I relaxed. As you can see, Tyler, you've made Oriela pretty upset. You may not think this is a big deal, but to us, it is. I'm sorry for what I did. It's not us you should apologize to. I'm actually going to give you a warning this time. He nodded, and Riven continued, apologize to Shereise. But if we ever find out you've done this again, I'll make sure something is done about it. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Alpha. Good. Leave my study. He got up to leave, and I decided to add one last thing. I care about Shereise, so I have every right to take this seriously. Do anything to hurt her, and I'll punish you myself. He nodded and walked out. I sighed and leaned my head on the table. Riven picked me up and sat me on his lap, and I leaned into his chest. Why do you care about Shereise so much, baby? I honestly don't know. There's something about her, and I can't figure out what it is. I understand. You two seemed really close today. It was interesting to watch. Thank you for taking us today. I know you didn't have to, but I'm really grateful that you did. There's no need to thank me. You know I'd do anything to make you happy. I know, and I'll never know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. As long as I have you, I'll be happy. I smiled and leaned back slightly, pressing my lips against his gently for a while. Can I ask you a question? I nodded, and he rubbed the back of his neck before continuing. Can I possibly spend the day with you? I looked at him confused. We spend every day together. I know, but I really want to take you out, just me and you. Like a date? Yeah, kind of. I know it's a stupid question, but I thought I'd ask. He trailed off quietly, looking away embarrassed, and I smiled gently, turning his face back toward me. When are you picking me up? He smiled. How about Friday at 7? Perfect. He leaned forward and gave me a quick kiss on the lips. I love you. I returned the kiss, giving him another one. I love you too. Chapter 19. Oriella's POV. Eliastoff Limia and Lyra Hart. Riven and I walked into the school building, and my eyes were fixed on Elias and Sam. Don't even think about walking off. Turn around, you two. They stopped and turned to face us. I looked down at their joined hands and smiled. So, he wasn't lying. Elias laughed. Why would I lie, Oriela? Who knows? How did you figure it out, Sam? Your boyfriend gave me a pretty big clue. I turned to face Riven. You helped him? He nodded. He looked really upset, so I thought I'd help. Oh, baby, that was so sweet of you. He smiled, and I leaned up to give him a quick kiss on the lips. I'll give you your real thank you later. I winked at him, and he licked his lips before I turned back to Sam and Elias. At least now you won't mind us kissing, because now you two can do it. Elias laughed, and Sam blushed, leaning into his chest, which only made Elias' smile grow wider. We'll see you guys at break. Riven and I have a free lesson. We won't be seeing you then, not with the way you two spend your free lessons. I pulled out a pen and tossed it at his head, which only made him laugh. I took Riven's hand and started walking away. See you fourth lesson then. I flipped him off over my shoulder as we continued walking, Riven chuckling next to me. He has a point though. Yeah, but I didn't want to admit that to him. He'd have a field day holding it against me. We turned the corner, and Riven smirked before pinning me against the wall, trapping me by placing both hands beside my head. Can he blame me for not being able to keep my hands off of you? His eyes roamed over my body, and I shivered with pleasure at his gaze. Your reactions just make me want you more. He leaned down to kiss my neck, and I instinctively arched it to give him more access. You have no idea how beautiful you are. He lightly grazed his teeth over my sensitive spot, and I let out a quiet moan, grabbing his hair so I could lift his head up to look at me. Stop teasing me and kiss me properly. He growled and leaned forward to press his lips to mine. I wrapped both my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, and he wasted no time before gently biting my bottom lip. I eagerly parted my lips for him, not wanting to waste any more time with the teasing. We're gonna get caught, I said against his lips, and he pulled away from me, smirking. Let's go somewhere more private then. I nodded, and he took my hand, leading me to wherever he was taking me. Not so fast, Mr. Kepler. I mentally groaned as we turned around to come face to face with the head teacher, Mr. Hunt. My office. Why? Don't think I don't know about what happened in your maths class the other day. If he goes, I go with him. Do you always follow him around, Miss Cashella? I felt Riven tense up, and he took a step forward. Listen here, Mr. Hunt, no disrespect, but the last person who spoke badly about Oriela ended up unconscious, so I'd advise you to think twice before you speak. You have no right to speak to me like that, Mr. Kepler. I was merely giving you a warning. Don't think just because you're the head teacher and alpha of the Red Suns pack that you can control me. In this school, I am your superior. Riven laughed. You have nothing on me. He took my hand again, and we turned to walk away from him. But before we left, Riven shouted one last thing over his shoulder. No one thing, Frank, I can make your life hell, superior or not. We turned the corner, and Riven led me into an empty classroom. I locked the door behind me. So, he's the alpha of the Red Suns pack? He nodded. I'd rather not talk about that. You don't want to talk about a lot of things, like a certain Lucy everyone keeps talking about. He tensed, and his eyes flashed red. Who told you about her? It doesn't matter who told me. It's the fact that I had to find out about her from somebody else instead of you, my own mate. I'm not ready to talk about her. Whenever I think about her, I get so angry. Angry enough to hurt me physically? Never. No matter how angry I get, I would never harm you. He walked up to me and grabbed my waist. Ever. I smiled and gave him a peck on the lips. I'm not saying you ever would. It's just that you said you would get really angry, so when the time comes to talk about it, I wanted to know if I need to keep my distance. You never have to worry, Oriela. I have enough control to know when I'm getting too angry and when not to hurt anyone. Okay, good. He smiled and leaned his forehead against mine. We still have 25 minutes left of our free lesson. What do you suggest we do to pass the time? I asked, running a hand up his shirt. He replied with silence. No suggestions? I asked while doing the same with both hands. I thought you said no teasing, he said with a hint of lust, and I slowly shook my head. I said nothing of the sort. You're such a tease. I smiled and leaned up slightly so I could feel his lips brush against mine. But you love this tease. More than anything. He closed the gap and pressed his lips to mine. My fingers tangled in his hair. He lifted me up, and I instinctively wrapped my legs around his waist. He walked forward, letting me lie back on one of the desks, but I didn't unwrap my legs. I wanted him as close as possible. I felt like such a bad girl making out with my boyfriend in an empty classroom during my free lesson, but when you have a boyfriend as sexy as mine, you just can't control yourself. I pulled away from him and leaned into his neck, closing my eyes to catch my breath. He chuckled. Glad to know I make you breathless. I sighed contently. You make me more than breathless. I leaned back and looked into his eyes. You bring out emotions in me I didn't even know I had. He smiled and leaned his forehead against mine. Isn't that a good thing? I smiled. Definitely. He gave me a quick peck on the lips, and I unwrapped my legs from around his waist. We still have 10 minutes left. He leaned down to kiss me again when I placed a finger over his lips. We'll get carried away. The door's locked, it won't matter. I smiled and placed a hand on his chest. It's only the first lesson, baby. We have another free period during the fourth lesson. He smirked at what I was hinting and moved off me so I could sit up. Are my eyes back to normal? He nodded. Yep. Are mine? I nodded, and he reached his hand out to me, which I gladly took as I stood up from the table onto the floor. I'll check to see if the coast is clear. I nodded, and I took that chance to fix my appearance. It's clear. I took his hand, and we walked out of the empty classroom. As we walked toward our next lesson like nothing happened, I wanted him to be closer to me, so I wrapped my arm around his waist. He smiled and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. We walked into our next lesson, which was history. Our teacher was pretty laid back, so we hardly had to do much work. We sat down in our usual seats, and Riven whispered to me, "Are you excited for our date on Friday?" "I'm more than excited. I'm kind of nervous." "Why?" I shrugged. "It's going to be weird, just me and you with no interruptions, not having to look over our shoulders." "Well, on Friday, I'll be temporarily giving up my alpha duties, so we won't be interrupted. We don't have to go, you know. I don't want to interfere with the important matters of the pack. You are important, and as much as I love my pack, if I had to choose, you would win hands down. That's the problem, baby. I would never come between you and your pack. You're a great alpha. It's our pack, and you're a great alpha female, but you're also my mate. No matter what happens, I will always put you first." I smiled and leaned into his side. We stayed like that for the rest of the lesson. Lunch, 2 lessons after history. I was currently on Riven back because I just couldn't be bothered to walk. You're really light, Oriela. I smiled. Glad to know. He walked into the canteen and headed toward our usual table. I jumped down from his back so he could sit down, and I sat on his lap. How was your free lesson, or should I say undisturbed makeout session? I grabbed a fork off Lyle's plate and threw it at him. Shut up, Elias. I know you and Sam had a free lesson during 3rd period, hypocrite. He winked at me, and I laughed, then looked at Lyle. So, Lyle, you and Christina should get together. Christina spat out the drink she was drinking and started choking. We all laughed. What's wrong with that idea? She regained her breath. Everything. Me and Lyle have known each other for 4 years. We're practically family. She's right. She's like my sister. Okay, let's stop with the nonsense. Riven chuckled, and I continued. Elias and Sam have known each other for 2 years, and look at them now, thanks to my loving boyfriend here. I leaned back into Riven's chest, and he kissed my temple. So yeah, you two should totally get together. They looked at each other briefly before turning back to me. It would be too weird. Okay, well, get used to looking at that every lunchtime. I pointed to Sam and Elias, who were practically all over each other, and laughed. Didn't take them long to get into it. Riven leaned down next to my ear. It didn't take us long either. I blushed and leaned into his chest. Lyle and Christina laughed. We'll get used to it. I picked up my glass of water and threw the contents at Elias and Sam. They pulled away from each other in shock. Oriela. I smiled. Yeah. What the hell was that for? I wanted to separate your mouths. Riven laughed, and Elias glared at me. You don't see me trying to separate you and Riven. Because if you did, you'd get hurt. You know how he feels when people hurt me. He gets angry when people look at you, let alone hurt you. Yeah, I do, because she's mine, and no other guy will come between me and my girl. I gave Elias an I told you so look. You see, you can't lay a finger on me. I stuck my tongue out at him, and he smirked. The next thing I knew, I was soaked with water. What the heck? Payback's a bitch, Oriela. I wiped my face and looked at Elias, who was holding an empty glass with a smirk on his face. Cold. I smiled. You tell me. I grabbed Lyle's water and threw it at Elias. Cold. I imitated. Even though I could see him shivering slightly, he still shook his head. I'm totally warm. What about you? I'm perfect. I could see him trying to reach for another glass, but Riven could see it too. Don't even think about throwing more water at my girl. And if I do? His hand inched closer to the glass. I'll throw water at your own girlfriend. He narrowed his eyes at Riven. You wouldn't dare. Wanna bet? Elias' eyes shifted from the glass to me, then to Riven, repeating this sequence 3 times before he finally gave up and pulled his hand away from the glass. Smart move. I smiled. Thank you, baby. I turned slightly so I could press my lips to his softly. Anything for you. I gave him another kiss before turning back to Elias. You're an ass. Now my hair is going to go all frizzy and stuff. You soaked me first. Doesn't mean you do it back. I'm an innocent girl. The whole table laughed. I may not know you well, Oriela, but even I know that you are definitely not innocent. Whatever, Lyle. It's true. You look innocent, but we all know the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. I'm 18, with a hot boyfriend, of course I'm not going to remain innocent. He laughed. True. I suddenly felt a cold breeze wash over me, and I started to shiver. Are you cold? I nodded, and Riven took off his hoodie and put it on me, wrapping his arms around me. Better. Much. Back at the pack house. We hadn't even fully entered the door when Tauren came rushing up to us, looking frantic. We have a problem. Which is? Shereise is missing. She's what? She's missing, but we think Kaelith took her. Get Alistair on the phone right now. This is the last straw. If Kaelith wants a war, I'll call it and declare one myself. He nodded, and I angrily walked upstairs to the bedroom and started pacing. Oriela, stop pacing. I stopped and turned to face Riven. How dare he take her and not expect me to retaliate? This is the reaction he wants. And this is the reaction I'll give him. He's pushed me to a whole new level of angry. Torren walked into the room and handed me the phone. Oriela, so nice to speak again. Cut the crap, Alistair. I know you have Shereise. Actually, my son does. He's doing this because he loves you. I don't love him back, and if starting a war between our two packs will show it, then so be it. I'll warn you now, Oriela, I won't go easy on you. And you're a fool for thinking I will. I hung up the phone and handed it back to Torren. The war starts today. Call a meeting in half an hour because we are going to win no matter what it takes. Chapter 20. Riven POV. I quietly watched as Oriela paced up and down the room, furious. Everyone just waited patiently for her to speak. After a few more minutes, she stopped and turned to face us. I flinched slightly from the intensity of her stare. I'd never seen her this angry before. If anyone in this room doesn't want to be involved in this war, I suggest you leave now. I looked around the room, waiting to see if anyone was coward enough to leave. But when no one stood up, I felt a swell of pride. It meant they were loyal enough to stay and fight. Okay, good. As you can tell, I'm angry. Actually, no, that's not even the right word to use. I am fuming. I am beyond pissed right now, and I do not want anyone in this room to piss me off anymore. I want to make that clear now, understand? Everyone nodded, so she continued, as you know, Kaelith has taken Shereise, which is what sparked this war in the first place. And believe me, I didn't want to start a war, but he's left me with no choice. Everyone has a choice, Oriela. I closed my eyes and shook my head slightly at the idiot who spoke. I don't even know who said that, but whoever did, stand up. I opened my eyes and decided to stand up and walk over to her. I knew this was the moment I needed to calm her down. I wrapped my arm around her waist and looked toward everyone. I said, stand up. If you're brave enough to say it behind a crowd, say it to my face. I knew they wouldn't be able to resist her command for long. It's an alpha command, you can't refuse it. A few seconds passed, and Danny stood up. No surprise there. What did surprise me, though, was when Oriela ran out of my arms and pinned Danny against the wall by his neck. I was about to rush over to stop her when she turned to face me. Stay where you are. I stopped in my tracks as she turned back to face Danny, who was struggling to breathe. You need to learn to never speak out of turn. I thought I told you not to piss me off even more. Did you not hear that part? He managed a slight nod. Then why would you bother speaking? Don't even answer that question. She released him, and he started rubbing his neck. I'm sorry. I don't care, leave. He looked at her, shocked, and was about to argue when I spoke up. Don't question what she said, Danny, we'll talk more about this later. I nodded toward the door, and he sighed, entering the code and walking out. The shelves closed behind him. Anyone else want to voice their opinions? Everyone shook their heads. Good. You know what? Come back in 2 hours, because right now I can't handle this. She entered the code again and walked out. I sighed and turned to face everyone. When we return, I expect everyone to have thought of a plan, an actual plan with proof. If there's not at least one by the time I come back, someone will be held accountable. Understand? They nodded. Dismissed. I walked out first and headed upstairs toward our bedroom, hoping Oriela was there. I entered the room and found her sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Kari? She slowly looked up at me, and I could see that she was crying. I walked over to her and wrapped my arms around her as she cried into my shirt. Baby, what's wrong? I can't handle this anymore. I can't handle this responsibility. I painfully spoke the next words. So, you want to leave? She pulled back and shook her head. I never said that. It was kind of implied. I wasn't implying that. I was just saying that being alpha female is a tough job. I didn't say anything about leaving. You know I would never do that to you, baby. I love you. I love you too. She stood up and gently pushed me down onto the bed, then climbed on top of me. No, I really love you. I really love you too. She leaned down so her lips brushed against mine. You owe me. I raised an eyebrow at her. Oh really? For what? She gave me a quick peck on the lips. For teasing me. I smirked. You enjoyed it though. I never said I didn't, but now it's my turn to tease you. She ran her hand down my chest until she reached my belt. I don't like to be teased, Riven. She slowly lifted my shirt and started placing kisses along my chest and abs while undoing my belt. I could feel my eyes darkening with every passing second. I'm a straight-to-the-point kind of girl. She kissed up my body until she reached the corner of my mouth. That's when she pulled away and looked into my eyes. So, I'll get straight to the point. She closed the gap and pressed her lips to mine, quickly removing my belt and tossing it aside. She lifted my shirt over my head, and since I'm all about fair play, I removed Oriela's shirt as well and quickly resumed kissing her. Just as she was about to move back down to my jeans, the door burst open. Riven, stop making out with your girlfriend and get downstairs. Oriela pulled away, blushed, and moved off me to grab her shirt. I stood up and glared at Adele. Adele, for fuck's sake. Language, Riven. That was the last straw. I shifted and lunged at her, pinning her to the ground with my paw over her neck, ensuring she couldn't move. I snarled at her as she gasped for air. Riven, let her go. I shook my head and stayed where I was, until I felt a force push against my side, which made me lose my grip and fall to the ground. I shook my fur and looked up to see Oriela in wolf form, growling at me. When I said let her go, I expected you to listen. She is pushing my buttons, and I am losing my patience with her. Doesn't mean you can pin her down in wolf form. I walked past her toward Adele, who was still on the floor, catching her breath. I lowered my head to her level and bared my teeth at her, making her try to shrink into the floor even more. I snapped my teeth close to her neck, signaling that if she stepped out of line again, I wouldn't hesitate to hurt her. She fearfully nodded. I moved away from her and gestured for Oriela to go back to the bedroom. She walked in first, and I followed, closing the door with my paw. I turned around to see that she had already shifted back. I couldn't help but look at her body, even though I had seen it many times. You're such a perv, Riven. Get dressed. She placed some of my clothes on the bed and started changing into her own. I shifted back and began putting on the clothes she gave me. If you didn't stop me, I probably would have hurt her. Yes, but I did stop you, which is the important thing. We can't have any more drama on our hands. I nodded. I understand, but she can't just walk in here like that. Imagine if we had gotten further than we were. I get where you're coming from, baby. Just control your anger a bit more. Okay. She beamed and pressed her lips to mine. Bless you. I smiled warmly and grasped her hand, guiding her as we descended the stairs. The instant we stepped into the living area, my father rose and fixed me with an intense stare. How dare you harm Adele, Riven? I narrowed my gaze at him, letting my eyes glow crimson to assert my authority. Understand your position, father. He recoiled a step, visibly shaken, before continuing. Why did you hurt your sibling, Riven? She also needs to comprehend her station, and I will reiterate, she is no kin of mine. Riven, simply let it go. I tensed. Let it go. You wish for me to dismiss it. You commanded me to end her boyfriend's life. She perceives me as a despicable killer, and you instruct me to forget it. I was literally trembling with fury at that moment, consumed by a red haze. Riven, compose yourself. You pledged to manage your rage. Oriela's voice within my mind brought about a slight calming effect, though not entirely. I turned to face the wall and inhaled deeply until I was certain I had regained my composure. I rotated back, and Oriela placed a soft kiss on my lips. If I hadn't been tranquil before, I certainly was now. I am not going to discuss this matter with you presently, father. Just be aware that if you opt for Adele over me, there will be ramifications. I am your father. What precisely are you contemplating, banishing me? He inquired with a hint of amusement. Do not provoke me, push me beyond my limits again, and I won't hesitate. Now, where is mother? With Shereise's mother. I nodded and took Oriela's hand, leading her towards another section of the pack house. The moment we entered, everyone fell silent. The only sound I could discern was the muffled weeping of Shereise's mother. Mrs. Prescott. She lifted her gaze to me. Yes, Alpha. I am deeply sorry about Shereise, but I assure you that we will exert every effort to locate her. I've never witnessed her so content. I looked at her, puzzled. What do you mean? Yesterday, she returned so joyous, more elated than I have ever seen her, and I truly wish to express my gratitude. Oh, but it wasn't I who brought her such happiness, it was Oriela. She looked at Oriela and offered a faint smile. Thank you immensely, and please, find her. Oriela nodded. We will persist in our search until she is found. She nodded, and I directed my attention to my mother. Mother, may I confer with you for a moment? She assented and approached us, and we all exited the room, moving beyond earshot of the others. What was it you wished to discuss? I recognize that we are alphas, but I cannot undertake this alone. I require your assistance. With what specifically? Well, as you are aware, the conflict has commenced, and we require a strategy. So, would you please join us in the forthcoming assembly? Would that be prudent? I looked at her, perplexed. Is there a justification for it not being so? She shook her head. Not necessarily. It's the possibility that individuals might perceive you as not sufficiently capable of devising a strategy. That is not the actuality. People possess a tendency to overanalyze situations, Riven. That is how individuals operate, and as we are wolves, fury overrides reason. I nodded. I comprehend, but I genuinely do not concern myself with how the plan is conceived, only that one is devised. Therefore, the assembly will be in 2 hours. Please attend. I will be present, and so will your father. He will be nowhere near me, mother. I do not wish to even cast my gaze upon him right now. What transpired? Inquire of him yourself. One of these days, I will be compelled to banish him from my pack. If he transgresses, I will, regardless of familial ties. The reality is that if he departs, I depart as well. He is my mate, and I stand by him. I know. Even when Adele asserted I was a killer, you uttered nothing. You knew the truth, mother, yet you didn't bother to support me. Instead, you stood by the individual who caused my sister to abhor me in the first place. That was not the situation. It was, and you are aware of it. I likely would have ended her today for stepping out of line, but I didn't. She is fortunate that I discovered my mate before her arrival, otherwise, I would have had no self-restraint. 2 hours, mother, be there. She nodded, and Oriela and I turned and walked away from her towards the lounge. I prayed that my father or Adele would not be present, but much to my dismay, both were. I desire a word, Riven. You do not inform me that you desire a word, you request it. He sighed. Very well, may we converse, please, Riven? You may, but she may not. I narrowed my eyes at Adele, and she lowered her gaze to the floor. I believe she finally grasped her rightful position within the household, and it is not at the apex. She can remain. I looked at Oriela, astonished. Who says so? I say so. Do you wish to dispute that? I shook my head. I wouldn't dare. I looked back at my father and Adele. Follow us. They nodded, and we all proceeded towards my study, where Oriela and I took seats behind my desk. My father and Adele occupied the chairs opposite us, and I gestured for them to speak. I would like you to apologize to Adele. I laughed without humor. Never. Why? Well, for one, she despises me, and the sentiment is reciprocal. And two, you instigated this animosity in the first place by commanding me to eliminate her boyfriend. So no, I will not apologize. It appears the only one you heed is Oriela. She is my mate. Whatever she desires, I will procure. Whatever she wishes me to undertake, I will execute. Wherever she wishes to venture, I will transport her. Then perhaps she can convince you to apologize. Look, father, I have no comprehension of why I should apologize, and she is seated directly there. Why don't you allow her to speak for herself? I looked at Adele. Come on, Adele, you were arrogant yesterday, and now you're bowing your head in silence. Speak up. I wish to converse with your mate. My mate possesses a name. Address her by it. She sighed and looked up. I wish to speak to Oriela. You have 10 minutes. I leaned over and gave Oriela a brief kiss. She smiled and sent me a mental message. Make it 5. I smirked, and she placed a soft kiss on my lips. I stood up and followed my father out of the door, leaving Oriela to converse with Adele. Oriella's viewpoint. Hurry up with this, because I have more significant matters to attend to. Like engaging in amorous activities with your male companion? Yes, exceedingly important. She rolled her eyes, and I glared at her. It's not solely Riven who can inflict harm upon you. I would derive considerable enjoyment doing it myself. Do not provoke me. I merely wished to inquire how you could initiate a conflict so swiftly. And I wish to know what connection that has to you. I am his sibling. And I am his mate. Who do you imagine he will listen to more? Did he inform you about Lucy? I narrowed my eyes but shook my head. No, he did not. Then he cannot cherish you as much as he claims. We are finished here. I stood up and was about to depart when she uttered something else. Always remember, don't just take what you hear as truth, seek out the complete narrative, and not solely from his perspective. I shook my head and left the study, heading up the stairs to Riven's and my room. The moment I stepped inside, Riven had me pinned against the wall. He whispered into my ear. That took longer than 5 minutes. I sighed. Riven, we need to have a discussion. He took a step back, his face etched with a worried expression. What did I do? I looked at him, puzzled. How do you even know you did something? I just know. Who was Lucy, Riven? His eyes flashed red. What did Adele tell you? To get your side of the story. She said you can't love me as much as you claim because you haven't told me about her. He looked at me, hurt. And you honestly believe that? You truly think I don't love you? I shook my head. I know you love me. I just want to understand why you won't tell me about Lucy. Because she's part of my past, and you're my future. Can't we just leave it at that? I shook my head. No, we can't, because you won't tell me who she is. I don't understand why you're keeping it from me. Because I don't want you to view me differently. Riven, I stepped forward and placed a hand on his cheek. What happened? I was so consumed with wanting to be the alpha that I took all my frustration out on her. I nearly hurt her once. The day I discovered she was unfaithful to me with my closest friend. I almost struck her. I didn't want to. I was just so overwhelmed by fury. I almost lost control. But you didn't, so what's the issue? The fact that I almost physically harmed a woman. You must think so poorly of me now. I sighed. Sweetheart, that doesn't make me love you any less. She betrayed you. You were angry, and anyone can comprehend that. Why didn't you confide in me about this? It's not that I didn't trust you. I didn't trust myself. I want you to promise me to always share everything, no matter how much you believe it might affect us. He nodded. I promise. I leaned forward and lightly pressed my lips against his. He wrapped his arms around my waist and gently pulled me nearer while I wrapped my arms around his neck and entwined my fingers in his hair. He moved back so my back was against the wall, but I decided to spin us around so his back was against the wall instead. I pulled away from him. Let's not get too carried away. Is it wrong for me to desire to make love to my mate? I smiled. No, but not right now. He twisted us back around and leaned down next to my ear. Why not? He lightly pressed his lips against my neck, and I let out a shaky breath. Why not, Oriela? I closed my eyes and grabbed a handful of his hair while he continued to gently kiss my neck, but I disliked him teasing me, so I lifted his head up to look at me. You know I detest teasing. You didn't answer my question. He leaned down so I could feel his lips brush against mine. Why not? Because. Because what? Oh, forget it. I grabbed his shirt and forcefully pressed my lips against his. I pushed him back so he was lying on the bed, and I started straddling him. Spirited. I smirked. You enjoy it when I'm like this. I adore it when you're like this. It makes me desire you more. Well, I gave him a peck on the lips. Stop wasting time. He eagerly pressed his lips against mine. And do you want to know one bothersome thing that occurs due to the fact that we're alphas? We always get interrupted, which is exactly what happened. So I pulled away from him and sat on the bed beside him. Come in. The door opened, and Tauren walked in, looking surprisingly enraged. Tauren, what's wrong? They're here. Who? Kaelith and Alistair. My eyes immediately turned red, and Riven wrapped his arm around my waist in an attempt to calm me down. What the hell do they want? I don't know, but they wish to speak to the alpha female. Over my lifeless body they will. Riven abruptly stood up and rushed out of the room, and I quickly did the same, in a hurry to catch up with him before he got too out of control. When I got to the back, all of the pack fighters were in their wolf forms, each one of them growling and snarling at the two of them. You dare to set foot on my territory. Temper, Riven. We merely wished to have a conversation with the female alpha. The day that hell freezes over is the day I'll permit you to speak to my mate. Kaelith smirked, and I felt like running over and wiping it off his face. Just recall that I still possess Shereise, a lovely girl. Touch her and I'll end you. Everyone turned to face me. She speaks for herself. If you lay even a single finger on her, I will make you suffer so terribly that you'll yearn for demise. My voice was icy and serious, but that didn't affect him at all. By the time you locate me again, he began backing away. She might already be deceased. I shifted in anger and pursued him as they started retreating back into the forest. What he said just made me furiously enraged, and I just felt like ending him. Oriela, halt. I'll kill him first before he does the same to Shereise, and you're not going to stop me, mate or not. I continued to chase after them until Alistair veered off in a different direction, but I didn't care. My eyes were fixed on Kaelith, and I was not going to slow down. Oriela? What? Riven? I'm occupied. I picked up my pace, but he did the same. It's a good thing that wolves possess excellent stamina. If you kill him now, you're granting him an easy escape. We want him to endure for what he has done. He was correct. I let out an intense growl, letting him know that this was far from concluded, and gradually slowed my pace until I had come to a complete stop. I'm returning. I'll bring your attire. I started running back to the pack house, and no more than 10 minutes later, I was back in the pack house, in the meeting room. We require a strategy, and we require one immediately. We could always ambush them and launch a surprise attack. I shook my head. That would never succeed. That would be the very first thing he'll suspect. If there's one thing he isn't foolish. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Think. I cannot allow anything else to happen to anyone in the pack. It's not even your pack. Returning to Riven's perspective, I gazed at Tauren, utterly stunned by his words, and then shifted my glance to Oriela, noting the glistening tears welling in her eyes. It was at that precise moment that my temper flared. How dare you utter such a thing? He looked at me with regret. I apologize, I didn't intend that. Why would you say that? She is my chosen partner and your lead female. This is undeniably her group. Riven, it's alright, just let it go. No, it's not alright. I turned toward Tauren, and he looked at me with apprehension. I do not care whether that was an unintentional verbal misstep or not. You will never speak about my mate like that again, and I will guarantee that you never do. Sweetheart, don't do anything you'll regret, it's not worth it. I looked at Oriela. He showed disrespect to you, and I am not going to tolerate it. I turned back to face Tauren Lutton. Don't do it, dear. I hereby cancel your standing as second in command of the Shadow Valley Pack and lower your rank one level down to Chief of the Combatants. Riven, please. I shook my head and turned to face Brenna Slade. I hereby elevate you from top pack fighter to second in command of the Shadow Valley Pack. Do you accept? Everyone in the room stared at me in disbelief, and Brenna nodded, speechless. Then it is settled. Everyone exit the room. This gathering is concluded. Dismissed. Everyone swiftly exited the room, and Oriela slapped me across the head. You're a blithering fool. I told you not to do that, and you went and did it anyway. What in the world is wrong with you? I was enraged, and I will not permit anyone to disrespect you as the lead female. She sighed. I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't upset, because I was, but I didn't want you to do that. There was no need to cancel his standing, Riven. He appeared heartbroken. It was out of bounds. No. What he said was out of bound. He will not say that to my chosen partner. Sweetheart, calm yourself. You're allowing your inner wolf to take command. I growled at her because my inner wolf was furious at that moment. Riven, please. I started trembling with anger. Oriela, go, I managed to whisper amidst the control of my inner wolf. No. Go. No. I dropped to the ground and growled. I would have changed form ages ago, but I was battling my inner wolf from appearing. I felt 2 arms encircle me, and Oriela whispered in my ear. Calm yourself. Listen to my voice, dear, just listen to me. I'm well, everything's fine. Don't let your inner wolf appear. Assure him I'm fine, please. She's not well, my inner wolf argued. She said she's well, we should listen to our mate. I growled, but I felt my inner wolf pulling back, and I exhaled a deep breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. Look at me, dear. I looked up at her, and she placed a hand on my cheek. I love you more than words can express, but you have to learn to let me handle situations on my own. I love you too, and I'm sorry. I'm just protective of you. I don't want to lose you. She smiled and lightly pressed her lips to mine before pulling away and embracing me. You're not going to lose me. No matter what you do, you will never lose me. I smiled and leaned back so I could press my lips against hers again. I love you. She pulled away and rested her forehead against mine. I love you too. I gave her a quick kiss on the lips, and she stood up so I could do the same. I need to talk to Tauren, don't I? She nodded. You do. He was truly distressed, and he probably still is. I sighed. What's done is done, but I will still speak to him. Kaelith is still out there, though, and we need a strategy. How about we relieve your tension first? She slowly ran her hand up my shirt, if you know what I mean. I smirked. Oh, I know what you mean. She sent me a seductive smile. Then what are you waiting for? I let out a low growl and pressed my lips against hers while I lifted her up in the style of a bride and carried her to our room without breaking the kiss. I just forgot about all the drama and focused solely on my chosen partner. Kaelith's perspective. I entered the pack house and went directly to the lowest level. I walked down the creaky steps until I reached the bottom and took in the view before me. I'm back again, Shereise. Why are you doing this? Because I cherish Oriela. But she has a mate. I growled. She's supposed to be paired with me, not him. She flinched back, and I smirked. I might have some enjoyment with you, Shereise, but not in the way you imagine. What are you going to do to me? She asked fearfully. The answer to that connects to what you are going to accomplish for me, and if you decline, let's just say you won't be seeing your pack members again. She looked down to conceal her tears, and my smirk widened. Once I put this scheme into action, I won't only reclaim Oriela, but I'll likely take command of the pack in the process. Chapter 21. Oriela's perspective. I cannot attend. Christina and Sam shook their heads vigorously. You absolutely must go. I cannot. I have too many things happening right now. Like what? Well, since I couldn't tell them about the group's troubles, I informed them of something else. Just some family disagreements. It's a romantic meeting, Oriela. You have to go. Imagine how let down Riven will be. I rolled my eyes. He won't be let down. He will be when he discovers you're not going to dress up for him. She winked at me and chuckled. He won't care. Won't care about what? I looked up from the ground and saw Riven, Lyle, and Elias standing over all of us. We were just discussing our evening rendezvous. He smiled. We could always reschedule the rendezvous if you don't feel up to it today. I looked at Christina and Sam, who shook their heads at me, and I smiled and shook my head before looking back at Riven. I'm eagerly anticipating it, darling. He extended his hand, and I took it so he could pull me up from the grass. He then pulled me into an embrace. I can't wait. I smiled and rested my head on his shoulder before I looked up and noticed a cluster of girls looking our way. Strangely enough, a feeling of envy arose within me. It appears you have a few admirers. He leaned back and looked where I was looking, and to my astonishment, he waved at the cluster of girls. Can you believe that? He waved. What in the world, Riven? He looked at me innocently. What? I was just being cordial. Being cordial? How would you feel if I was just being cordial to a cluster of guys? I didn't do anything wrong. What's the issue? Just respond to the darn question. Riven, how would you feel? Annoyed. Precisely. Then why would you go and wave at a cluster of girls in front of me? Ooh, I just feel like smacking you right now. Okay, I'm sorry, darling. He walked forward to grasp my waist, but I simply pushed him back. Apologies won't suffice, darling. Why don't you go and wave at some girls? I walked away from him but didn't even get 6 steps away before I was being pressed down against the grass. It happened so swiftly that the breath literally caught in my throat as I hit the ground. There is no way I'm allowing you to walk away from me again. I looked up at him, and he smiled down at me. So you decided to press me against the grass in broad daylight with everyone observing? I looked behind him to see that we actually did have an audience watching us before I looked at Riven again, and he shrugged and leaned down so his lips were just barely touching mine. Let them observe, especially my new companions. I smirked and gave him a quick kiss on the lips. You're dreadful. But you love me, he said in a melodic, sing-song voice. More than anything. He closed the space and pressed his lips against mine gently, but I wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him closer, desiring to deepen the kiss. So I decided to flip us over, so I was now straddling him. I completely forgot that we were still outdoors in public, so I pulled away from him, but he wasn't having that because he leaned up to kiss me again until I placed my hands on his chest and gently pushed him away from me. We're still at school. So? I smiled. So, this is the only period where we all have a free session, and we wanted to all be together. They won't object, though. Come on, darling, it's unfair. He sighed. Okay, fine. I gave him a peck on the lips before I stood up and helped him off the grass, walking the many 6 steps back towards our companions. So, you two reconciled then? I smiled. Riven is the one who practically pounced on me. Because I love you. Or, I wish I had a male companion like Riven. As I mentioned before, Christina, Lyle is available. Come on, just give it a try and see where the connection leads you. They both looked at each other with hesitation before Lyle spoke up. I suppose it wouldn't hurt us to see. She bit her lower lip and nodded. I suppose not. He rubbed the back of his neck. So, will you go out with me? She smiled and nodded. Yes. Does that mean I can kiss you now? I rolled my eyes. Seriously, Lyle, just hurry up and kiss her already. Riven chuckled, and Lyle hesitantly leaned forward and lightly pressed his lips against Christina's. She immediately got into it and wrapped her arms around his neck to pull him closer, and I just laughed at the fact that she's the one who didn't even desire a connection with him. Or, youthful affection. How about we leave those two alone? Riven nodded. Yeah, we should. Let's go before Elias and Sam realize as well. I looked over at Elias and Sam to see them embracing each other, and I just smiled and shook my head before taking Riven's hand and allowing him to guide me to wherever he was taking me. How about we commence our romantic meeting early? I look awful, Riven, let's be realistic. You look stunning, Oriela. I blushed and bit my lower lip. You always say that. Probably because it's always accurate. I leaned into his side, and he chuckled and wrapped his arm around my waist while we continued to stroll, presumably back to the vehicle. Anywhere you'd prefer to go? You're the man, you should decide. He laughed and opened the car door for me, and I smiled before getting in. He ran over to the other side and got in as well. You do know that it's only midday, we still have one more lesson. He shrugged. I'd rather take my beautiful female companion out on a romantic meeting, to be honest. I smiled. You are too kind for your own good. Do you enjoy that? Enjoy what? Kind male companions? It's not plural, Riven. I only adore one man, and he's the kindest man I know. I looked out of the window, and literally the entire car ride, Riven was beaming from ear to ear at what I said, and I couldn't help but smile at how endearing he was. I'd be perfectly fine with the movie theater, you know. What kind of male companion would I be if I took you to the movie theater for our initial romantic meeting? A very good one, actually. Don't you want to make me content? I started to produce a few feigned tears just so I could observe his reaction. Darling, you know I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry. Of course, I want to make you content, just please don't cry, darling, please. I didn't mean it, I swear. I smiled and shook my head. I know you didn't. I just love it when you speak all sweetly and apologetically. He chuckled. And why is that? Because it signifies you love me enough to offer amends, even when you did nothing wrong. He smiled. I just want you to be content. Will you take me to the movie theater then, instead of some fancy establishment? He nodded, if that's what you wish, but we both know that we won't be paying attention to the film. Why else would I choose to go? He smirked, probably to watch the film. Why would I watch the film when my attractive male companion is seated right next to me? He chuckled, I'm not even going to answer that. I laughed and looked out the window again, and we continued our ride in a comfortable hush. 10 minutes later, Riven parked the car right outside the movie theater and then turned to face me. I'll grab the tickets while you find a spot to sit, okay? I nodded, and we both stepped out of the car. He gave me a quick kiss on the lips before walking off to get the tickets, and I settled onto one of the empty chairs to wait for him. A male individual came and sat down next to me. After about half a minute of noticing him staring at me from the corner of my eye, I turned to face him. Is there a reason you keep looking at me? He shook his head. Nope, I just feel like gazing. Well, don't. It's unsettling. I'm causing no harm. You're staring at me, it's giving me shivers. You know you appreciate the attention. From my male companion, I do. Do you even have a male companion? I felt an arm encircle my shoulder. Yes, she does, so back off. Or what? You'll discover. I placed my hands on Riven's chest and shook my head. Just let it go, darling, please. He kept his angry expression fixed on the man behind me, so I decided to cup his face and make him look at me. Leave it. He sighed. Okay, fine. I gave him a peck on the lips and took his unoccupied hand so we could walk away from the unsettling man. Taking directives from a female, pathetic. I could tell that Riven was about to do something, but I acted first. I turned around and struck the man in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. Don't undervalue a female, pathetic idiot. He lay on the floor clutching his face in discomfort, and Riven chuckled next to me while we continued walking to the correct screen. We entered the dim room, and Riven led me directly to the very back of the room, in the last row, right in the corner. Out of all the seats to select. He chuckled, it's practically empty, so all the more reason to sit at the back. He sat down, and I sat down next to him, only to be pulled onto his lap. Did you think I was joking when I said we weren't going to watch the film? Sort of. Well, I wasn't. I smiled, and he leaned up and pressed his lips against mine. I wrapped my arms around his neck while he grasped my waist and pulled me closer to him so that our bodies were pressed against each other. It's a good thing it was dark, at least no one could clearly see what we were doing. I pulled away from him, and he groaned, Why did you halt? I don't want to be discovered. We won't be discovered. It's only us and about 4 other individuals here, and they're at the front. I know, but still, I'll give you much more when we get home. He smirked. How much more? I ran a hand over his chest. As much as you desire, darling. He gave me a peck on the lips. Can't wait. Oriela, Riven, we have a situation. I looked at Riven, and he nodded, confirming that he also received the message. What is it, Brenna? There are 2 wolves, claiming to have departed the Dark Moon Pack, and they wish to join ours. No. Do not put your faith in them. They refuse to leave. They want to see both alphas. I growled softly, we're on our way. Keep them in your sight. I don't care if you have to restrain them to a chair in front of you. Observe them. Yes, Oriela. He severed the link, and I stood up from Riven's lap. He stood up behind me, and I started walking when he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me back against his chest. He leaned down next to my ear. Calm yourself, darling. All I can sense from you is fury. Probably because I'm furious. I know you are, but don't be. We're going to go and verify their account, okay? We won't let them bring any harm to our pack. I'll make sure it doesn't happen, alright? He kissed my shoulder blade lightly, and I turned slightly so I could lightly press my lips against his. I love you. He smiled. I love you too. I took his hand, and we both walked out of the movie theater and back to the car, where we drove back to the pack house for 20 minutes in silence. It wasn't a comfortable quietness, but it wasn't uncomfortable either. I just don't think we knew what to say to each other, so we didn't say anything at all. 20 minutes later. We walked into the pack house and went directly towards Riven's study, where we came face to face with the two young men from Kaelith's pack. Dismissed. The four wolves surrounding the room nodded and walked out of the study, with the last one closing the door behind him. The two young men turned to face us, and I crossed my arms over my chest and waited for them to speak. Alpha female, my name is Josh, and this is my brother James, and we would like to join your pack due to unfortunate circumstances. State the pack you originated from. They swallowed. The Dark Moon pack. The Alpha is Kaelith Knight. So, Kaelith is finally the Alpha. Since when? Since 2 days ago. I laughed without humor. Jerk. I know that you and Alpha Kaelith are at war. You know nothing. I honestly cannot believe that you would even set foot on our territory and have the audacity to ask if you could join the pack. What makes you think that we'll permit you to join? They shrugged. We were just hoping. You're the most formidable pack in the south. Make your point. I'm not being unreasonable or anything, but I do not trust anyone from the Dark Moon pack, and until this conflict is over and Alpha Kaelith is dealt with, nothing will make me trust you. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to find another pack. That's if you even departed in the first place. Just grant us an opportunity. I started to become enraged, and Riven sensed it too because he intervened before I could say anything. We will not be granting you anything. When this conflict is over, and you still have nowhere else to go, then we will consider allowing you to join our pack. But until then, I'd like you to leave. They nodded. Brenna, Adrian. They walked into the room, and I gestured towards the young men. They nodded and led them out of the room, and I closed the door behind them and rested my head against it. Darling, are you all right? I shook my head against the door, and he turned me around and pulled me into an embrace while he started rubbing my back. It's going to be fine. I know deep down that Kaelith orchestrated that, but I can't be certain. Kaelith is a sly scoundrel who considers no one but himself. I have brought so much trouble to this pack, it's absurd. I didn't want to involve anyone in my personal turmoil, and now look. He leaned back and shook his head. Don't you dare say that any of this is your fault, because it isn't. I don't care if Kaelith is pursuing you because I love you enough to fight for you, no matter how much you don't want me to. I smiled. I want you to fight for me, but it won't matter because I'll always select you. I slightly lifted my shirt to show him the mark and to remind him of what we share. We'll always be mates, and nothing will alter that. He bent down and kissed my mark, which made me close my eyes and bite my lower lip due to how much pleasure surged within me when he did that. Should I cease? I let out a shaky breath. No, don't. He lightly pressed his lips against my mark again and gently grazed his teeth over it, which just pushed me over the edge. I let out a moan and pushed him away from me so that he fell to the floor, and I got to his level and started straddling him. Don't do that again, please. He smiled. I'm sorry. I thought you enjoyed it. That's the issue. I enjoyed it too much. It was a sensation I cannot handle. I'm sorry, darling. I won't do it again, I promise. I leaned down and gave him a peck on the lips. I detest you for doing that to me. He chuckled. You told me not to stop, though. And I detest you even more for listening to me. He pulled me down so that I was now lying on his chest, and he started rubbing up and down my back. I told you I'm sorry. I sighed. I know. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I didn't mean to take it out on you. I've never felt like that before. He continued rubbing my back gently as he spoke. I'm still sorry, though. He kissed the top of my head, and I snuggled into him more as he tightened his arms around me. Even with all the turmoil occurring, Riven still manages to make me feel better. Kaelith's perspective. 1 hour later. Adam. He came rushing into the room and bowed respectfully. Yes, Alpha? Where are they? They are approaching your office right now. Expedite them because I am losing my endurance. Yes, Alpha. He dashed out of the room, and no more than 2 minutes later, Josh and James entered the room. Alpha Kaelith. They bowed before me, but I was not pleased at the moment, so I growled at them, and they recoiled in apprehension. I have been informed that you did not achieve the objective. They nodded slowly, and I slammed my fist down on the table. Why not? They wouldn't trust us. They didn't have faith in us. I instructed you to claim you were from a different group. We forgot. I picked up my empty glass and hurled it at the wall next to them, and they flinched. You forgot. You believe I have time for such oversights. You too will be penalized whether you like it or not. I stood up and angrily strode out of the room and downstairs, all the way to the cellar where Shereise was. I approached her and grasped her hair to awaken her, and she cried out in agony. Does this cause discomfort, Shereise? She bit her lip and nodded, tears streaming down her face. Excellent, because at this moment, you deserve the agony I am inflicting upon you. What did I do? She cried out, and I tightened my hold on her hair. Your strategy failed. They couldn't gain entry into your group because they didn't place their trust in them. That's not my culpability. My eyes turned scarlet, and I lifted her from the chair by her hair, and she shrieked in pain. It's entirely your culpability. I do not have time for your nonsense. Now I am going to grant you 24 hours to devise another plan for me, or you will experience much more suffering than this. Do you comprehend? Yes. I patted her cheek. Good girl. I released her hair, and she dropped to the ground, curling into a ball and beginning to weep. I just shook my head at how pitiful she appeared and exited, fuming. Shereise better contrive a suitable plan, otherwise I will have no hesitation in making her suffer for it. ## Chapter 22. ## Riven's perspective. Oriela. She said nothing. She simply continued to walk back and forth across the room, something she had been doing for the past 20 minutes. So I stood up and walked over to her so I could grasp her waist and make her cease. Darling, stop pacing. She sighed. I just want to locate Kaelith and bring Shereise back home. He's making me so infuriated. She leaned her head on my chest, and I gently rubbed her back. I know, but you cannot allow him to affect you. That's what he desires. Do not grant him the satisfaction. I cannot help it. He just makes me so enraged. I kissed the top of her head. I know, darling, I know. Just don't be so harsh on yourself. This is entirely my fault, Riven, and you know it. No, I don't know it, because none of this is your fault. It's his fault because he will not accept the fact that you discovered your mate and you are content. I just want to end him right now. I cannot believe I ever loved him. Neither can I mumbled under my breath, and she looked up and gave me a quick kiss on the lips. You forget we possess advanced hearing. I gave her a sheepish grin, and she just smiled and shook her head. I truly adore you. I truly adore you too. Riven, we have a predicament. What is it, Brenna? Lionel has reported seeing rival group fighters. Which ones? Dark Moon. I growled, and Oriela looked at me, puzzled, before I responded. I'm coming now. Assemble every single group fighter we have. They will not depart here unharmed. Certainly, Riven. We'll rendezvous at the combat point. I cut off the link and looked at Oriela. I have to depart. Have to depart where? I have just been informed that Dark Moon fighters are on our territory. Her expression changed from confusion to understanding and directly to fury in a matter of seconds. No, you are not going to engage them. I have to. I am the Alpha. I don't care, Riven. You are not going out there. I am doing this to safeguard you. The only way I will be safeguarded is if you safeguard me yourself. Don't go out there, please. Adrian, Danny, come to my chamber now. I'm sorry, darling, I have to do this. Adrian and Danny came rushing into the room, and I gestured towards Oriela, and they immediately understood the hint. They grasped her arms and held her back. Keep her secure until I return. They both nodded, and I looked back at Oriela to see tears streaming down her face, and it broke my heart to see her like that, but I have no alternative. Please. I shook my head. I'm sorry. I turned to walk out, but before she could be out of my hearing range completely, I heard her call out to me. I love you. I smiled and opened our mind link so I could reply. I love you too. I'll be back shortly. I closed the link again and continued walking out of the pack house before I shifted and started running towards the combat point. No more than 5 minutes later, I emerged from the trees into an open area to see all of my most skilled fighters, and they bowed their heads to me in reverence. Raise your heads. They lifted their heads, and I looked towards Brenna, or in this instance, the grey wolf with the blue eyes. Where are they? They should be nearing our border now. Let's not waste time then. I just want to get this over with so I can go home to my mate. He nodded, and I growled to instruct everyone to follow, to which they responded with a nod. We all ran off into the woods again with me in the lead. I detect their scent. I growled in confirmation, so do I, they're close. Everyone slow down. We slowed down from running to a slow walk, ensuring to be alert, because with every stride I took, their scent grew more potent, yet I couldn't see them. Guard your backs, I know they're nearby. We continued walking forward, and I perked up my ears to see if I could hear even the slightest sound to give me a hint as to their location. Where in the world are they? I growled, and soon enough, the question was answered because without warning, at least 8 wolves leaped out from the trees and surrounded us. They snarled at us. Whatever you do, do not turn your back on them. We snarled right back at them, and I took a step forward to demonstrate dominance, and I could see some of their postures waver, but no one retreated. One of the wolves let out an intense growl, and they all advanced on us. I wasted no time, so I lunged for the wolf in front of me, and he was no match for me at all because I clamped my teeth down on his neck, and he went limp in seconds. I turned back around to see the rest of them fighting each other. Riven, duck. I didn't even bother turning around, I ducked immediately and instantly leaped onto the brown wolf's back, digging my claws into his skin in the process, making him howl in agony before he shook me off and wasted no time in lunging for me. But before he could reach me, Tauren lunged for him and clamped his teeth down on his neck, making him cease struggling and fall limp. Tauren. Riven's perspective. He turned to face me and shook his wolf head. We will always be companions, and at this moment, I am supporting you. And I am supporting you, so I'd advise you to step sideways to the right now. He shifted to the side, and I was about to go for my second kill of the night, but he also sidestepped. I felt a force press against my side before I felt teeth pierce through my side, making me howl in discomfort. I was afraid at that point, but not because we might be defeated, because we wouldn't. I was fearful for Oriela, because I knew that she could feel that. I snarled at the wolf for also harming my mate, and I ignored the pain. I swiped my paw across his face, ensuring to extend my sharp claws upon impact, which made him whimper slightly. But before he could recover from the pain, I lunged for him and sank my teeth into his neck, not deep enough to end his life, but deep enough to inflict immense suffering. I desired him to suffer before I killed him, suffer for causing my mate distress. I dug my claws into his skin, making sure to maintain my grip, and he whimpered again and began struggling in my hold, which started to become bothersome. So I put him out of his misery and buried my teeth deeper into his neck, making him stop struggling and go limp. I released my hold on him, and he fell to the ground. I shook my fur and turned around to see all of the enemy group fighters lifeless on the ground. I growled at the fact that they wasted my time, making me come here just to find out they're not even a challenge. A complete waste of time. Kaelith will dispatch more of them, and they will be stronger. I growled, I know, but we'll concern ourselves with that later. Carl, tell Lionel to dispose of the bodies however he deems appropriate. No problem. I walked up to one of the wolves and kicked his lifeless body with my front paw. They'll regret ever bothering with me and my group. I snarled at the deceased wolves and turned around to face my pack again. Return to the pack house now. They all nodded, and we started running back to the pack house. Adrian, get all the pack fighters some attire, we're on our way back. Will do. Be prepared to face Oriela. What did she do? It's not what she's done, it's what you've done. You'll see. I huffed in annoyance and severed the link, focusing on running back to the pack house. No more than 10 minutes later, we emerged from the trees and back to the pack house. We each took our clothes between our teeth, and I went behind a tree and shifted back to human form. I stretched out my muscles a little bit and looked down at my side to see faint bite marks. The scoundrel is fortunate I can heal quickly. I changed back into my clothes and walked out from behind the tree so I could enter the pack house. My thoughts immediately went to Oriela and how I hurt her, and I increased my pace towards our room. I reached our room and opened the door, making sure to secure it behind me. I only had a fraction of a second to duck before a glass came flying at me and struck the door behind me, shattering upon impact. I rose to my feet and turned to look at Oriela in shock, only to see her face clouded with fury. What was that for? You tell me. Where in the world were you? Fighting off the adversary. You got wounded, didn't you? What are you speaking about? Stop with the nonsense, Riven. I sensed it. I sighed. Yes, okay, but it wasn't that bad, it's barely perceptible now. That's not the point, Riven. That was only a minor assault. Imagine if there were more of them. You could have been gravely injured, or even worse, deceased. Her voice faltered as she let out the last word quietly, so I walked up to her and wrapped my arms around her, and she leaned her head on my chest. I would never abandon you, darling, you should know that. I know, but I'm nothing without you. If you weren't alive, then what's the purpose of my existence? I looked down at her, shocked. Don't say that, don't ever say that, Oriela. You will never be without me because I refuse to leave you now. Stop thinking like that, okay? She remained silent, so I tilted her chin up to look at me. Okay. She nodded, okay. I gave her a quick kiss on the lips. Good. Show me. I looked at her, puzzled. Show you what? The bite mark. Oriela, it's enough. Just show me. I sighed and stepped back so I could take off my shirt and so that she could get the full view. I turned sideways, and she walked up to me and gently traced her fingers over it before she bent down and lightly kissed it. Even though I could barely feel it before, it felt like the pain completely vanished when she did that. Does it feel better? I nodded, much. She stood up straight again and placed a hand on my chest. Is there anything else that you want me to kiss to make it better? I pointed to my lips, and she wasted no time in pressing her lips to mine softly before I grabbed her waist and pulled her closer to me, wanting to deepen the kiss a bit more. I gently bit her lower lip, and she eagerly parted her lips for me. I wasted no time in letting my tongue explore her mouth, even though it had done it many times before. Kiss the mark, she said against my lips, and I pulled away from her and looked at her, shocked. You told me not to. Please. The amount of desire and affection that was in her eyes was enough for me to give in to her, so I lifted up her top slightly, making sure to brush my fingers along her skin while doing it, before I bent down and lightly pressed my lips against her mark, which was enough for a quiet moan to escape her lips. I grazed my teeth over it, and she took hold of my hair, so I thought, I might as well make the most of it before she pushes me away like last time, because I knew I was pushing her over the edge. I traced over her mark with the tip of my tongue, making sure to go over every detail. Riven, I swear to God that if you don't make love to me right now, you won't get any for a month. A month? Absolutely not. There was no way I was going a month without making love to my mate. I stood up and captured her lips with mine again, and she lay back on the bed while pulling me down with her. I wasted no time in getting her shirt off and every other item of clothing that was obstructing me from making love to her. No amount of threats or assaults could ever keep me and Oriela apart, and I will make Kaelith know of that one way or another. Kaelith's perspective. What do you mean they're lifeless? Adam flinched. They went to attack Riven, but they were outnumbered. They are stronger than we imagine. And we are stronger than they imagine. That was merely an assessment. An assessment of what? You wonder why I didn't send out all of my fighters? He nodded, now curious, because I knew they weren't formidable enough, but now we can train them to be strong, to be invincible, understand? But who will train them? Who else to train them but the best? Vinny. He looked at me, shocked. Vinny Alfonso? The one and only. It's rumored that he ended the lives of 6 wolves all by himself. It is no rumor, that is true. I looked towards the door and came face to face with Vinny. He and my father are good companions, so as soon as I told him I needed a trainer, he appeared in a flash. Long time no see, Luke. Same to you, Vin. So, who is this? He asked, gesturing to Adam. This is my beta, Adam Field. It's an honor to meet you, Vinny. Please call me Vin, everyone else does. He nodded and looked back at me. Where is this girl you spoke of? Which one? The one you are holding, of course. I stood up and gestured for him to follow, so he walked behind me while I continued to lead him towards the cellar, to where I was holding Shereise. As soon as he saw her, he got this sadistic grin on his face. My, she is quite appealing. She looked at us in fear and moved back against the wall, so I walked over to her and tightly gripped her wrists while leaning down next to her ear. You will show respect to us, so if you ever do that again, I will make sure that you suffer for it. Am I clear? She nodded her head, and I released her wrists, and she rubbed them with her hands. I turned back to face Vinny. Excuse her, I am still attempting to teach her about proper conduct. It's fine. He walked up to her and started to play with her hair, and I could tell that she was about to move away from him when I let out a growl and sent her a warning look, which made her stay in place. I might have some enjoyment with her. She whimpered, and he started to caress her cheek. Don't worry, my love, I do not mean sexual assault. I do not condone sexual assault. I could see relief wash over her face before he spoke again. You can please me in many other ways. No, please. Of course, I need authorization from the Alpha first. She looked at me with pleading eyes, but I just shot her a look of disgust and nodded towards Vinny. Do as you please, just cleanse your hands afterward. He chuckled and turned back to face Shereise. This should be amusing. I turned around and walked back up the stairs, leaving Vinny to do whatever he desired with her while I thought of how to commence the training. Alpha. I looked up from my training plans to see Peter. What is it? We have a female here claiming to possess information about Riven and his pack. Send her in. Yes, Alpha. He walked out, and no more than 2 minutes later, a girl walked in and bowed her head. Alpha Kaelith. Take a seat. She lifted her head and took a seat in front of me. I'll get straight to the point. You have information? I know the pack house intimately. I smirked. How do I know I can put my faith in you? She shrugged. You're just going to have to take the chance, but I assure you, it's a chance worth seizing. Let's start afresh, shall we? I extended my hand. Kaelith Knight, Alpha of the Dark Moon Pack. She put her hand in mine. Lucy Reynolds, the solution to your difficulties. We shook hands, and I knew that I could trust her. I have a feeling that Lucy will definitely assist me in obtaining what I desire, and I always obtain what I desire. Chapter 23. Oriela's viewpoint. I truly need to locate her. It has been 5 days, and apparently, he cannot be keeping her in the pack house. Riven looked at me, puzzled. Why not? It would be too obvious. Sometimes, the most evident locations are precisely what is utilized. I sighed. I know, but I understand him, and I know he would never make this straightforward. I observed him clench his hands, and his breathing intensified, a sign that he was becoming enraged. I rose from the bed and walked over to him so I could place a hand on his cheek. Compose yourself. I despise him so much. He has no right to harm Shereise or you. I will end him. I leaned up and lightly pressed my lips against his while I moved my hands down and unclasped his fists. Instead, he intertwined his hands with mine before he pulled away. I apologize. I gave him a small smile and kissed him lightly on the lips. You do not need to apologize. I do. I shouldn't become this angry. It's not helping anything. It's just that he has ruined everything, and I detest him for it. I detest him too. In fact, I think the entire pack detests him now, and when I find him, he's going to wish he never encountered me. He let out a low growl, and his eyes turned black, a sign of desire. What's wrong? He shook his head. Nothing. You just look so alluring when you're angry. I raised an eyebrow at him. Oh, truly? He nodded. It's so captivating. I bit my lower lip and ran a hand over his chest in a captivating manner. How captivating? Want me to demonstrate? I nodded, and he pushed me back so that my back was now pressed against the wall and placed both of his hands next to my face. He leaned down so that I could feel his lips brush against mine. If I told you that I desired offspring, what would you say? I looked at him, shocked, and pushed him back slightly. What? Figuratively speaking, what would you say? Well, we're mates, so it's destined to occur. But, I sighed, but we have too much transpiring right now. He nodded. So once Kaelith is dealt with, you'll contemplate it? I wrapped my arms around his neck and looked into his eyes. Once Kaelith is dealt with, nothing would make me happier than having offspring with you. He smiled widely. Truly? I gave him a peck on the lips. Truly. He placed his hand on my cheek and started to caress it, and I closed my eyes at his touch. I love you. I opened my eyes and smiled. I love you more. Impossible. I twisted us around so that he was against the wall and pressed my lips to his, but he was not having that because he twisted us back around and bit my lower lip, and I wasted no time in allowing him in and letting him take command. He lifted me up, and out of instinct, I wrapped my legs around his waist, and he held me up by holding my thighs, and I pulled him closer by grasping his shirt. We were interrupted from our intense embrace by a knock at the door, so I pulled away from him and groaned. I swear it's as if they do it on purpose. Riven chuckled and gave me a peck on the lips. I'll make it up to you later. He winked at me before he let me drop to the ground and went to open the door, and I smiled and closed my eyes, letting them return to normal because I knew they were dark with the amount of passion that was circulating around us. Oriela. I opened my eyes to find Talon in the doorway and Riven gone. Hey, Talon, where have you been lately? Surprisingly, I missed my older brother. He smiled and closed the door before walking over and sitting on the bed. I've just been at a friend's place, pondering. About what? My mate. I sighed and went to sit next to him on the bed. You'll find her soon, I guarantee it. You do not need to guarantee it because I already found her. I looked at him, shocked. When? 4 days ago. I punched him in the arm. Oh, Oriela, what was that for? For not informing me. I'm your twin, we tell each other everything. He ran his hands through his hair. I know, but it's not that simple. I looked at him, confused. Why not? Who is she? Francesca. Francesca Simmons. The loose woman who was intimately involved with my mate. Ah, yes, her. I growled at the memory. Out of all the females in the world, it had to be the pack's promiscuous one. He growled at me. That's my mate you're maligning. I put my hands up in surrender. I was just stating facts. Don't growl at me because she's been intimate with every male in the pack. Oriela, he said in a cautionary voice, and I just rolled my eyes. Whatever, Talon, you know I'm speaking the truth, and I know you don't like it. Of course, I don't like it. I don't want my mate behaving promiscuously, being intimate with any male she sees and not caring. She might as well be a common prostitute. I sighed and put my hand on his shoulder. I'm guessing you haven't spoken to her since you found out? He shook his head. Nope. She might have changed since then. Mates tend to have that effect on people. He snorted. She hasn't. I overheard Brad talking to his friends about how skilled she was in bed. Darn male trolls. Just speak to her, Shaq. Make her see what she's missing out on. She probably won't even look at me. Then make her envious. Trust me, it works every single time. I should know. He chuckled and nodded his head. I guess I could attempt it. Good, and next time you leave for days, let me know. He smiled. Will do. Thanks for the guidance, sis. Anytime. I stood up from the bed and pulled him up before we both walked out of the room and went down into the kitchen, where we saw Riven, Sadie, Neil, my mother and father, Mrs. Prescott, and, surprise, Francesca. I walked up to Riven and wrapped my arms around his waist, and he turned around and lightly pressed his lips against mine. Finally. I smiled against his lips before I pulled away. Miss me? You have no idea. I was only gone for 10 minutes. He leaned his forehead against mine, and those felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life. I smiled and was about to lean up and kiss him when a cough stopped us from doing so. Yeah, we are still here, you know. We smiled, and I gave him a quick kiss on the lips before I moved away from him and went to stand next to my mother, who was sitting down in one of the chairs near the table. So, what were you discussing? Shereise. My breath caught in my throat as my eyes started to fill with tears. I don't even know why I'm so emotional. I just felt so connected with Shereise, and it's practically my fault that she's missing. I felt the tears stream down my cheeks, and Riven was in front of me in a second, gently wiping them away for me. It's not your fault. I shook my head. It is. I looked behind him at Mrs. Prescott. Mrs. Prescott, I am so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Well, that's a first. What do you mean? Never would have thought a lead female would be apologizing to me for something she didn't do. I'm not a born alpha. She stood up and placed a hand on my shoulder. Being a good lead female does not come from being a lead female by birth. Your mother could have been the lead female, but that doesn't mean you would be as good or as bad as her. Being a good lead female comes from the core. It requires dedication, zeal, authority, and affection for others, and that doesn't come by lineage. From what I've observed, you are a wonderful lead female. That address brought tears to my eyes because I have never been spoken of so highly before. She pulled me into an embrace, and please call me Layla. I nodded, and she pulled away from me so that Riven could take over, and I leaned my head on his chest, and he ran his hands over my hair. Sheesh, darling, it's okay. We'll find her. I promise he won't escape punishment for this. I nodded, and he kissed the top of my head. You're a despicable woman. I pulled away from Riven and looked at him, puzzled, and I took his hand, and we all walked out to where the dispute was originating from, and we walked into the lounge to see Francesca and Talon in a rather intense disagreement. I'm not a promiscuous woman. He laughed without humor. Yeah, like I'm going to believe that. I walked in here to find you kissing some other male. Why do you care? Because you're my mate. Gasps of astonishment filled the room at that revelation. Should I stop the arguing? I shook my head. Let them handle it. It's also engaging to observe. He chuckled, and we went back to watching the disagreement. I don't want a mate. I'm content with my existence. How can you be content? You're intimate with every single male in the pack, but you can't accept your own mate? You're a hypocrite. You're a male troll. I don't want to accept you. Why? Because I have feelings for someone else, okay? He looked at her, shocked, hurt flashing through his eyes. Who is he? It doesn't matter. He found his mate. He took a step closer to her. Who is he? Just let it go. Who in the world is he? Riven. Okay. I have feelings for Riven. Everyone gasped again, and I looked at her in shock but mainly fury. I took a step forward. You what? Oriela, compose yourself. Hold on, Riven, I need to make sure I heard correctly. I looked back at Francesca. What did you say? I'm sorry. Confound it. So you're telling me that this entire time, you've harbored feelings for my mate? You're telling me that you won't accept my brother because you have feelings for my darn mate? She nodded. I'm truly sorry. I released my fury and lunged for her, pinning her down to the ground with my hand over her neck. Riven, don't you dare come near me right now, or anyone else for that matter. Riven stopped moving forward and took a step back, and everyone stayed put, and I looked down at Francesca. Now, I am going to state this once and once only, so make sure you listen carefully. My brother is a fantastic man and the finest mate you could ever ask for, so you have no right to reject him. You're fortunate he's even looking at you, considering you've been intimate with every male in this pack. These feelings you have for my mate better cease quickly, because you won't get him, end of story, because I certainly won't permit it, ever. Now, get your head out of the clouds, get your act together, and have a conversation with my brother, because I darn well said so. Do you understand me? Even with my hand over her neck, she managed a nod, so I sent her an innocent smile and released her neck. Okay, great. I stood up and brushed myself off before I turned to face everyone else, who had a mixture of shock and apprehension. We all know it had to be done. I looked at Riven to see his eyes had turned black, and I automatically knew why. Well, Riven and I are going upstairs. Talon. He turned to face me, so I continued, talk some sense into her. He nodded, and I took Riven's hand so that we could walk upstairs to our room. As soon as we entered, he secured the door behind us. You looked so incredibly captivating just then. Just then. You know what I mean. The power and authority that emanated from you were so alluring. I appreciate a female who can take charge. I smiled and wrapped my arms around his neck. It's a good thing I can, then, isn't it? I just can't believe she has feelings for you. Did you know about that? Of course not. I never would have guessed, but let's not discuss that. He leaned down so that his lips were just barely touching mine. Let's not speak at all. I closed the space and pressed my lips against his, and all the anger, shock, annoyance, and any other emotion I felt left my body as soon as I kissed Riven. It was just me and him, everything else didn't matter, nothing else was happening. But if only that were true. Kaelith's perspective. I knew that regaining Oriela was going to be a formidable task, and I understood that I had to meticulously orchestrate everything before I even contemplated retrieving her. But the crucial inquiry is, how do I achieve it? Alpha. I snapped out of my contemplation and looked up to see Adam. Yes. Vinny desires to commence the training now. Immediately. He nodded, and I groaned before I stood up and began to follow him outside toward the garden where all of my pack fighters were awaiting. Alpha, everyone uttered simultaneously while bowing to me. Elevate your heads. They raised their heads, and I turned to face Vinny. How do you wish to proceed with this, then? How physically capable are they? Sufficiently capable. Capable enough to defeat this Riven you're referencing? No, that is obviously why I summoned you, I stated with a trace of vexation, and he raised his hands in surrender. Calm down, I am here to assist you. I nodded and took a few deep breaths before I turned to my pack. Wolf on wolf combat? No. I turned to Vinny, puzzled. What do you mean, no? I would like to witness their wolf on human combat. Are you insane? He shook his head. If you cannot learn to fight a wolf skillfully in your human form, then you can never attain your full fighting potential in wolf form. I absorbed what he said and nodded in comprehension before facing my pack again. You heard him. Partner up and engage in wolf on human combat. They all nodded, and before I realized it, half of them transformed into their wolves, and the other half appeared quite apprehensive, which made me shake my head in embarrassment. If you are afraid of your own pack members, then you are not a genuine fighter. You are feeble. With that declaration, they straightened up and assumed their fighting stances. I was proud to observe that none of them held back when it came to fighting each other, but before they sustained severe injury, I instructed them to switch. Switch. They all switched to the opposite side, wolves to human and human to wolves, and wasted no time fighting each other again, and I turned to face Vinny. So? He nodded. They're proficient, but I've witnessed better. They're going to have to exert significant effort if they ever wish to reach a higher level. They will exert significant effort. They better. He walked past me and stood in front of everyone. Stop. They immediately ceased and turned to face us. Shift back, go get changed, and return. The next few weeks will encompass the most rigorous training sessions you will ever experience in your life. They hesitantly nodded, and they all walked back into the pack house to get changed, and Vinny turned to face me. Go and organize a strategy while I get your fighters into prime condition. I nodded and walked off into the pack house. Lucy. Lucy is now a part of the Dark Moon pack. She had to be, with the information she possesses. I could not permit such an opportunity to slip through my grasp. She descended the stairs with a smirk on her face. You summoned? Show some deference, Lucy. She snorted. I only joined your pack because if I went rogue, I would be a menace, and you know that you require me more than anything. If anything, it should be you extending deference to me. I growled at her. I am your alpha. I don't care, to be honest. My anger left my body, and I smirked. I appreciate you. You're not afraid to assert yourself, even to an alpha. She shrugged. That's just how I am. After what Riven inflicted upon me, I don't tolerate nonsense. I gestured to her to follow me, and she nodded and walked behind me towards my office. We walked in, and I pointed to one of the seats, and she understood the hint and sat down in one of them while I went to sit down in the other one. He banished you, did he not? She nodded, her eyes turning a faint red. Yes, he did. All because of one trivial error? She nodded again. Yes. If you assist me in regaining Oriela, you can have Riven. They're mates. But you were his first, and I was Oriela's. It's only equitable that we reclaim what is rightfully ours. I could discern from her expression that she was contemplating whether or not to comply with my words, so I slightly altered the plan. Or you could help me eliminate him. She looked at me curiously. And how do you propose we accomplish that? I smirked. End his life, of course. He's powerful. And I will be more powerful. I'm not a killer. Consider all the actions he took against you. He banished you, accused you of things you didn't do, and worst of all, I leaned over the desk, he struck you. She looked at me, shocked. How did you know about that? I possess a great deal of knowledge, darling, from many packs. I have connections. She looked down, so I continued speaking, ensuring that she had no choice but to concur with me. You merit retribution, Lucy. He had no right to strike you, to lay his hands on his own companion. It was an oversight. I laughed, just as I surmised. You're not strong enough. You're weak. I'm not weak. Yeah, right. You don't even desire retribution. He struck you, and you're claiming it was an oversight? You're a deplorable excuse for a werewolf. She growled, and I knew I was provoking her anger. I needed to make her see reason. You know what? Your parents must be mortified, having a daughter who can't even defend herself. It's dishonorable. How do you sleep? Her eyes turned red. How do you go about every day? Just knowing that you're weak. Knowing that you're Lucy Reynolds, the absolute lowest. She trembled with fury, and before I realized it, she transformed into her wolf, and I smirked, knowing that I had finally gotten through to her. She lunged for me, but I was an alpha, so I evaded her and pinned her wolf against the wall. Even when I'm in human form, I'm stronger than the average wolf, one of the many benefits of being the alpha. That is what I desired to observe. You now grasp the fact that Riven has made you feel feeble, but you are far from it. I will end him. She sent me the message, and my smirk only widened. Shift back. I released her and walked over to my drawers to retrieve some attire for her. Yes, I now keep clothing in my drawers. Too many individuals become enraged and shift in my office for me not to keep them. I tossed her the clothes, and I turned around, and no more than 5 minutes later, she was fully dressed and appeared homicidal. Do you now comprehend what we must do? She nodded. I desire vengeance for what he inflicted upon me, and he needs to compensate. Are you weak? No. I said, are you weak? No. Then tell me what you need to do. I need to end him. I need to make him suffer. He will regret ever banishing me. Hector, usher in Shereise. I sent the message, and no more than 2 minutes later, Shereise walked into the room, and she closed the door behind her. Take a seat, Shereise. She sat down and looked at me with a new expression in her eyes. Tell me what you have learned from Vinny. Riven never cared about me, no one did. He turned everyone against me. If I send you back, will you promise to continue the strategy? She nodded. I promise. What is the strategy, Shereise? Return to the pack, earn his trust, and wait until he is in a vulnerable state. Contact you through a mental message and await the assault. And then, seize what is yours and bring it to you. And what is mine? Oriela. I smirked and nodded. Good girl. I stood up and walked over to her. Rise. She stood up and bowed her head to me while I began to recite a few words. Shereise Prescott, I hereby proclaim you a part of the Dark Moon Pack. Do you promise to abandon your former pack, including all sentiments, and only devote yourself to pleasing your new alpha? Do you swear to adhere to his regulations and his regulations alone, never to disobey him, and to give 100% to the pack? She nodded. Yes, I do. Then it is accomplished. Even by simply observing her, I could perceive her changing packs through her physical being. You may depart, Shereise. She bowed. Thank you, Alpha. She turned around and left the room, and Lucy just looked at me, shocked. What did you do to her? Nothing. We merely instilled in her mind falsehoods about Riven and the pack. It required considerable effort, but she believed us in the end. She smirked. Clever. I know. Alpha, we have a predicament outside. I groaned and stood up to walk outside to the back, and when I walked out, I could see 2 of my pack members fiercely fighting each other. Enough. I was in full alpha mode now, and they immediately ceased fighting and bowed to me, and I growled. The fact that you 2 even possess the audacity to fight each other during training sessions sickens me. I do not want an explanation. I do not want an apology. I want both of you to exit my pack. They looked at us, shocked. Alpha, please. I said get out. I hereby banish you from the Dark Moon Pack. You brought this upon yourselves. They lowered their heads and walked away from me and into the forest, and I angrily turned to face the rest of my pack. Let that serve as a lesson to the rest of you. Step out of line once, and I will do the same thing to you. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Alpha. Good, now go inside and get out of my sight. They all quickly ran into the pack house, and I just stood there, attempting to calm myself down by closing my eyes and taking deep breaths. Alpha. I opened my eyes and turned around to face Lucy. What is it? Preserve your anger for the plan. You'll require it. You're right. He took my girl, and I will ensure he never bothers with me again. May I pose a query, Alpha? If you must. Why Shereise? Why did you abduct her instead of someone she actually knew? Because for some peculiar reason, Oriela is connected to Shereise, and she is the key to obtaining Riven. How? I narrowed my eyes at her. I'm not going to recount the entire story to you, Lucy. Consider yourself fortunate that I informed you of that much. You require me, Kaelith, more than you realize. If you do not tell me willingly, I will compel you to tell me by force. I shrugged, and she looked at me with an eyebrow raised. You wouldn't dare. Test me. Adam and Spencer, outside now. I sent the message, and no more than 2 minutes later, they came running out, and I gestured for them to stand behind Lucy. So, Lucy, what will it be? Cooperation or by compulsion? She looked at me with a hint of apprehension in her eyes. Okay, I'll tell you. Sorry, Alpha. I nodded and gestured for Adam and Spencer to leave, and they bowed their heads and turned around to walk away. Now you know, Lucy, I do not trifle around. Disrespect me again, and I will make you suffer so severely, you'll be longing for banishment again. Do you understand? She nodded frantically. Yes, Alpha. Good, get out of my sight. You've irritated me enough today. But Alp. I cut her off with a growl. I said go. She ran off into the house, and I shook my head at her insolence. I am not one for patience, and sooner or later, she'll discover that. I just need to finalize the strategy with Shereise and my pack fighters, and then everything will be set. Riven will regret ever taking Oriela from me when I am finished with him. Chapter 24 Part 2. Kaelith's Perspective. I was seated in my meeting chamber, simply observing everyone present, maintaining a neutral expression. If I desired this scheme to succeed, I knew that I could not permit any weak individuals in my pack. They demoralize everyone else. This is why if I discern anyone who appears feeble, I will banish them. I genuinely do not care if they haven't personally wronged me. The mere fact that they are hindering the rest of my group is sufficient for me to permanently expel them. Alpha, are you all right? I glanced at Stephen and narrowed my eyes. Did you truly just pose that inquiry? I am the Alpha, of course I am all right. He looked down. Apologies, Alpha. I sighed and ran my hands through my hair in exasperation. Does everyone comprehend the plan? The room collectively nodded. Yes, Alpha. Has everyone encountered Shereise? Only a few individuals nodded their heads, so I nodded towards the doorman, who opened the door to allow Shereise to enter. Hello, Shereise. She bowed her head to me. Hello, Alpha Kaelith. Take a seat. She nodded and proceeded to sit in the unoccupied chair next to Adam. Introduce yourself, Shereise. Well, as you are aware, my name is Shereise Prescott, and I am here to serve the Alpha. I smirked and nodded. How? I now understand that Riven never cared for me, and he needs to atone for deceiving me. Do you place your trust in me? She nodded. You revealed the truth about Riven to me. He's nothing but a fabricator and a charlatan. Now you know. Before Oriela arrived, did he even spare you a second glance? She shook her head. Before Oriela arrived, he hardly even wished to breathe the same atmosphere as us. I chuckled. You see what he has done, Shereise? He has rendered you weak and susceptible. He has led you to believe that no one likes or desires you. That is not right. May I express my thoughts, Alpha? Provided you maintain decorum and do not show disrespect to me. She nodded. I just wish to state how much I truly want to expedite this plan. I looked at her, puzzled. Why is that? I dislike sitting idly and accomplishing nothing. While before I had no say in anything, now, I feel as though I am gaining some authority, and I wish to utilize it to teach Riven a lesson. I am not going to permit you to foolishly rush back to his pack house simply to disrupt everything. That is not how I operate. Permission to speak, Alpha. I sighed. Yes, Adam. How do you know we can trust Lucy? I laughed. She betrayed an alpha, and she certainly isn't going to run back to him, especially after he struck her. He struck her? I nodded. Apparently so. Dreadful, isn't it? Everyone around the table nodded in agreement. So what is the plan, Alpha? If you were important enough to be aware, I would have informed you. I apologize, Alpha. Whatever. The fact remains that Riven is anticipating a conflict, and indeed, will provide him with one, but not in the manner he expects. Alpha, we have someone from the Shadow Valley pack requesting to see you. I growled and stood up. I will return in 10 minutes. Remain in place. Everyone nodded, and I walked out of the room toward the front of the pack house. As soon as I saw who was there, a smirk formed on my face. Well, if it isn't the renowned Adele Kepler. So, you've heard of me? My dear, everyone has. Who could forget the girl who caused the demise of the world-famous Alpha of the Red Forest pack? She growled at me. I did not cause his death. I laughed. Oh, wait, my mistake. You knew he was going to be killed, then. It's the same thing in my estimation. She took a few steps forward. You should learn to show respect to your elders. I withdrew a knife from my pocket and held it toward her while I made my face expressionless. Take another step toward me, and I'll teach you a damned lesson about respecting your alphas. She looked at the knife with fear in her eyes. Do you comprehend me? She nodded fearfully, and I resumed my smile. Great, I'm glad we finally understand each other. Now, let's address the reason you decided to enter my territory. I know that you and Riven are at war. Look, I honestly do not care who you are, where you originated from, or what you desire. I have enough damned complications already, and I am perilously close to losing my composure. I actually came here to offer assistance. Look, I may be youthful, but I am not foolish. You're his sister, there's no way I'm accepting your help. Just hear me out. I am holding a knife toward you, and you're still asking me to hear you out. Now, you either wish to be harmed, or you're simply unintelligent. Either way, you either leave my territory willingly or by force. Your choice. You can trust me, however. I sighed and walked toward her while she kept taking a few steps back until I had her pressed against the wall. Even though she was older than me, I loomed over her by at least a few inches. I moved her hair from her shoulders and ran the blade of the knife over her shoulder blade. Sharp blade, isn't it? I slid it over to her neck. It would be a pity if it left a mark on your exquisite body, wouldn't it? She remained silent, but I could visibly see her trembling with apprehension, and that only made me smirk. Come on, Adele, say something. Please, she whispered, and I brought the knife around so I could move her hair out of her face. Please what? Please don't. I shook my head. Incorrect response. I made a slit in her shoulder, which made her cry out in discomfort. Please what? Stop, please. I made another slit next to the other one, which made her cry out again. Please what? I'm sorry. Just stop, please. I shook my head again and made a third cut, but this time a bit deeper, and I could see a few tears fall from her face. Say it, Adele. You know what I want you to say. Please. What? Please, Alpha. I took a step back, and she fell to the ground, clutching her now bleeding shoulder. That's better. I hope you've learned your lesson, Adele, have you? She nodded while looking down to the ground. Look at me. Unless you want me to use this knife again, I suggest you bloody look at me. She looked up at me. I've learned my lesson. Good. Don't make me teach it to you again. I'll be departing now. She stood up and was about to walk out of the door when I ran in front of her and shook my head. You think I'm just going to permit you to walk out of my pack house now? After all that you know? I'm not an imbecile. Please. I won't inform anyone. Apologies. I grabbed her by the hair and dragged her towards the basement. I walked down the stairs with her crying out in discomfort the entire way through, and I chained her up with silver restraints. Don't bother attempting to shift. These are silver chains. No wolf can shift with these on, and they are unbreakable even to the most formidable werewolf. Impressive, huh? She just let out a whimper of discomfort, which made me roll my eyes. Now, I'll grant you 2 days to make a choice. Either you join my pack permanently, or you perish. Simple alternatives, limited time. I don't want to join any pack. You have 2 days, Adele, but in those 2 days, you'll be begging to join my pack, because once I'm finished with you, well, you'll see. I turned around and started walking up the stairs, but I turned around one last time and said, "Lights out." I switched off the only illumination in the basement, which rendered it completely dark, and I could hear her crying from the top of the steps. I walked out of the basement and applied my padlock, specifically crafted for occasions like this, and started walking toward my office. I walked in, and everyone bowed their heads in deference and only lifted them when I took a seat. "Alpha, when do we send Shereise back?" "Whenever she perceives the opportune moment is right." "So, Shereise?" She faced me. "Yes, Alpha. When do you wish to initiate the plan?" "As soon as feasible." I nodded. "Then you return tonight. Make it appear authentic, Shereise, because we cannot afford for this plan to go awry. I promise you, Alpha, I will not disappoint you." I smirked and nodded. I know for a fact that Riven will be pliable in her hands, and as soon as she has the opportunity, we'll strike, and I'll reclaim Oriela for good. Chapter 25. Riven's perspective. One would have thought that by now I would have grown weary of observing Oriela slumber, but no, she's simply too exquisite, and I feel as though I must watch her to ensure that what I'm perceiving is genuine and that I was truly bestowed an angel for a mate. "I'm not an angel, Riven." She turned to face me with a smile on her countenance, and I sheepishly rubbed the back of my neck. "Apologies." She looked at me, perplexed, and sat up. "Why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong." "I know. It just felt like the fitting moment to articulate it. You're so peculiar." She leaned forward and gave me a peck on the lips. "But that's what I cherish about you, and your attractive physique." I laughed. Figured. She moved over so that she was now straddling me, and she started running her fingers through my hair, which simply made my wolf purr. "What do you wish to do today?" "Remain in bed and demonstrate how much I adore you." She playfully struck my chest. "I believe you've shown me plenty." I chuckled. "Nah, I still don't think I've shown you adequately." She leaned down so that I could feel her lips brush against mine. "You can show me as much as you desire later." I raised an eyebrow at her. "As much as I desire?" She ran a hand over my abdominal muscles. "As much as you desire." I let out a low growl and closed the gap between us so that I could press my lips against hers, and she intertwined her fingers in my hair and pulled me closer to her. I lightly bit her lower lip, but she started teasing me and didn't allow me entry, so I bit it again, but with a bit more force, and she gasped in astonishment. I took that as my chance to slip my tongue into her mouth, but she didn't object. She started contending for control, and me being the affectionate mate that I am, granted it to her. I flipped us over so that I was now atop her, and I moved my lips down so that I was kissing her neck, and she arched to the side so that I could have more access, and she started to run her nails all the way down my back, causing me to let out a growl of contentment. "I love you so much," she said breathlessly, and I moved my lips away from her neck and looked up into her eyes. "I love you too." She smiled and gave me a peck on the lips. "We truly should depart from bed." I groaned and laid my head on her chest, and she laughed and ran her fingers through my hair again. "I don't want to get out of bed," I said in a childlike voice. "Come on, darling. As much as I would love to linger here all day with you, we should rise." I shook my head. "I don't want to." "I'll prepare you breakfast if you do." "With cured pork." She laughed. "Yes, Riven, with cured pork." I sat up and smiled. "Okay, let's go then, but put on one of my shirts before you do." "Afraid I'll run off with someone else?" "No, I just don't want any males ogling my mate. You know how I get, Oriela." "I know. Don't worry, I'll put on a shirt if it will make you happy." "Extremely." I moved off of her so that I could retrieve one of my shirts for her. I handed it to her, and she stood up and put it on, and because she's quite petite, the shirt extended to her knees, and my eyes just darkened at the sight of how captivating she looked in my shirt. "Go put on some leg coverings." She raised an eyebrow at me. "Excuse me? That better not have been the alpha tone I detected." "Just do it, Oriela." "No." "Did you just say no to me? Just remember, I'm your alpha. You are also my mate, and I do not expect to be addressed as if I'm some promiscuous woman. I sighed. Can you just put on some leg coverings or something, please? You're revealing far too much leg for my preference. I'll put on some leg coverings when you put on a shirt. You think I was going to permit you to parade around the house without a shirt? Think again, darling. She winked at me and walked out of the bedroom, and I let out a growl and put on a shirt like she instructed me to before I followed her out of the room downstairs into the kitchen. Hi, Riven. Hey, Talon, where's Oriela? She just went outside with some male named Jay. Damn. I ran outside into the garden to see Oriela pressed up against the wall with Jay in front of her, and my eyes turned red. Before I knew it, I was striking him about the face and was about 2 seconds away from transforming into my wolf. What do you imagine you are doing? He stepped back in fear. Nothing, Alpha. I stepped forward and narrowed my eyes at him. It appeared as though you were assaulting my mate. I was about to teach him a lesson when Oriela stepped in front of me and placed her hands on my chest. Don't do it. I looked down at her. I admire how you didn't push him off of you, and now you wish to defend him. Is there something you want to disclose to me? She pushed me, and I stumbled back a few steps. I was actually about to kick him in the privates before you came out. Don't jump to conclusions so quickly. I walked past her toward Jay, who was just standing there with fear on his face. I'd advise you to depart immediately before I allow my wolf to take over and teach you a lesson. He nodded frantically and ran off into the house, and I took a few deep breaths before I turned to face Oriela. I didn't mean what I uttered. She put her hands on her hips. Oh, truly? I nodded. Yes, I was just angry that he was touching you. Only I am permitted to do that. You make me appear feeble, Riven. I'm supposed to be the alpha female, and you're making me look weak. I just wanted to safeguard you. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I apologize. She walked up to me and wrapped her arms around my neck. I know you are, darling. It's just that I want to be able to accomplish things on my own. I can't rely on you constantly. I leaned my forehead against hers. I'm sorry, darling. She gave me a peck on the lips. I forgive you. I smiled and pressed my lips against hers again, and I sent her a mental message. I still haven't received my cured pork. She smiled against my lips and pulled away from me. Typical male, contemplating sustenance. I smiled. It will yield benefits later. She looked at me, perplexed, so I leaned down next to her ear. Provides me with more vitality for the sleeping area. She blushed and playfully hit my arm, and I just chuckled at her adorableness. You're so charming. She blushed even more and buried her face in my chest. I despise you, she mumbled into my chest, and I chuckled. I love you too. I was about to kiss her again when we were interrupted by frantic calling. Riven, it's Shereise. I put my hand up to cut Brenner off, slowly. She's returned. I looked at him, puzzled. Who's returned? Shereise. I looked at him, shocked, and all of a sudden, Oriela ran out of my arms into the house, and I walked after her, still in shock. I walked into the house, and there before me was Shereise, and I looked at Oriela to see her gazing at her with tears in her eyes. Shereise turned to face Oriela and gave her a sorrowful smile before she ran over to her and hugged her, and then they both started weeping. I can't believe you're back. I missed you, Oriela. I'm so sorry. Oriela ran a hand over her hair as she spoke. You have nothing to be sorry for. I'm just glad you're home safe. I decided to leave them both to catch up, so I started to walk out of the room when Shereise stopped me. Alpha. I turned around. Yes? Don't pursue Kaelith. And why shouldn't I? He kidnapped you, Shereise. He needs to pay. She flinched and recoiled from me in fear, and I ran my hands through my hair. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout. She smiled sadly. He released me, and I don't want any trouble, please. She pleaded with her eyes, and I nodded. Okay, fine, I won't pursue him. Thank you. I smiled. It's fine, as long as you're content. She smiled, and then Mrs. Prescott walked into the room, and she ran to her daughter, and Oriela came up to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I can't believe she's back. I started rubbing up and down her back to comfort her. I can't either. I'm confused as to why he released her in the first place. It makes no sense to abduct her just to release her so easily. I know, but she's back, so let's not dwell on it too much. You're right. I kissed the top of her head and looked toward Shereise and her mother. I know for a fact that there's a trick to all of this because Kaelith would not just release Shereise so easily after all the effort he went through to take her, and I know that this is going to cause a great deal of drama, but I just don't know what kind or how much. Chapter 26. Shereise perspective. Well, that proved much simpler than I had anticipated. I can scarcely believe that Riven was so impressionable as to accept the notion that Alpha Kaelith merely released me without consequence or any intention of pursuit. I almost chuckled aloud at his gullibility right then and there. I genuinely do not wish to inflict harm upon Oriela, and I acknowledge that I inevitably will, for once Riven is dealt with, Oriela will likely be devastated indeed, there is no probably about it. She will be devastated. However, to be frank, that will not deter me from teaching Riven a lesson, because, quite frankly, it is imperative. He needs to be brought down a peg, alpha or not. Shereise. I sat upright in my bed to see Riven, and I nearly snarled at him, but I suppressed my inner wolf and bowed my head to him. Although he is no longer my alpha, I still need to feign allegiance so that he remains unsuspicious. Alpha. I observed him approach and seat himself on my bed from the corner of my eye, so I took that as my signal to lift my head. I wish to pose some inquiries to you, if that is acceptable. Regarding what? What transpired when Kaelith apprehended you? Well, I suppose it's time for my dramatic flair to commence. Initiate the tears. I'd rather not discuss that. I ducked my head, and he sighed, which allowed a small smirk to subtly appear on my face before I resumed my sorrowful expression. I understand that you prefer not to discuss it, but I need to comprehend what occurred. I shook my head just as a tear trickled down my face. Please do not compel me to speak of it. I heard him emit a low growl beneath his breath. I'm going to end him. I felt him rise from the bed, and I sprang up and grasped his wrist. He turned around and looked at my hand on his wrist, and I quickly released it, realizing my blunder. It is exceedingly disrespectful for anyone to touch an alpha anywhere except for his mate. I took a step back and looked at the ground, mentally chastising myself for making a mistake. Because Riven is no longer my alpha, that regulation does not actually apply to me within his pack. However, he obviously still presumes that I am in his pack, and my touching him in that manner just violated one of the protocols. My apologies, Alpha, that was an error. I promise it will not happen again. If it does, Alpha Kaelith will not be pleased. It's fine, Shereise. I am not going to take any action. I looked up at him and offered a small smile. Thank you. It's just that, Kaelith, He interrupted me by raising a hand. I understand, Shereise. His manner of conducting affairs is, in simple terms, deplorable. I refused to utter a disparaging word about my alpha, so I simply stood there in silence. Oriela was genuinely concerned about you. I nodded. I missed her. At least that wasn't a complete fabrication. I genuinely did miss Oriela because, just like her, I also felt a bond between us, which is truly peculiar because even though she's the alpha female, I don't really know her. Shereise. I emerged from my reverie. Apologies, Alpha. Feel free to penalize me for my disrespect. I mentally rolled my eyes at the words emerging from my mouth because even I knew that my acting abilities were sufficient for him not to penalize me, and because I literally have his precious mate wrapped around my finger. That is not grounds for punishment. Look, how about I invite you and your mother to join us for dinner? You mean with you and Oriela? He nodded and smiled. Yes, I'm certain Oriela would appreciate it. I don't believe that's fitting. I'm merely a pack member. It's not as if you're coming without authorization. I am extending the invitation. Alpha Kaelith. What is it, Shereise? Riven has extended a dinner invitation to me. Is it in my best interest to accept? He's awaiting an answer right here. For such an intelligent girl, you sometimes lack practical wisdom. Of course, you should go. Okay, Alpha. I severed the link and nodded at Riven. Okay. Even though this will circulate throughout the entire pack today, I'll accept your offer. He smiled. Okay, great. Do you wish to see Oriela now? I nodded, and he extended his hand for me to take, but I simply shook my head, to which he shrugged and gestured for me to follow him. I walked behind him and pondered. I can scarcely believe he just offered me his hand. An alpha just offered me his hand. I emitted an inaudible growl at the fact that not long ago, Riven didn't even acknowledge a pack member like me, but as soon as his mate begins to notice me, he does too. I am so grateful that Alpha Kaelith revealed the truth to me. Otherwise, I'd still be unaware of the falsity of the individual in front of me. I just can't believe I didn't discern it earlier. Now that I'm looking for it, the indications are utterly apparent. It's actually ludicrous. I followed behind Riven into the lounge, where we saw Oriela with her brother, who had his arm wrapped around some girl, so I'm just going to assume it's his mate. Oriela. She looked away from her brother and turned to face us, and she smiled warmly at me and gestured for me to sit next to her, so I walked past Riven and sat down beside her. She pulled me into a hug, and at that moment, I almost felt bad that I'm going to be involved in the killing of her mate, but then I dismissed it when I looked at Riven's smiling countenance and hugged her back. I truly missed you, Shah. I missed you too. She pulled away, and a guilty expression spread across her face. I'm so sorry. We tried to find you, Shereise, honestly, but we couldn't. It's all my fault. I looked at her with a genuinely shocked expression on my face because I honestly didn't realize that she felt this way about my abduction. It wasn't your fault. Yeah, Kari, you didn't intend for any of this to happen. Oh, where are my manners? Shereise, this is my twin brother, Talon, and his mate, Francesca. I looked at Francesca and then back at Riven with a puzzled expression. Wait, didn't you too? I swear you've been. Oriela cut me off with a laugh. I think I understand what you're attempting to convey. Her and Riven, yes, they did have a brief romantic encounter. Fortunately for him, I'm a forgiving person, and in his defense, Francesca is a promiscuous woman. Talon growled at Oriela, watch what you utter about my mate. Sister or not, watch your language. Francesca shook her head and placed her hand on his arm, which instantly calmed him. It's fine, she's correct, but I'm not engaging in promiscuity anymore. I have you now. Oriela rolled her eyes and turned back to face me. So, Riven informed me you assented to joining us for dinner. I nodded. Yeah, after being confined in darkness for a while, I think it would be best to be surrounded by you all. Initiate the anger. He did what? Initiate the tears. I looked down. He confined me in darkness the entire time with only 2 meals a day. I could see Oriela clench her hands from my peripheral vision. Darn scoundrel. We need to make him atone. I looked up and shook my head. Please don't. Please. I don't want a conflict to begin. Riven looked at me dumbfounded. To begin? The conflict commenced when he stabbed my mate and was confirmed when he kidnapped you. The conflict has already started, Shereise. I allowed the tears to flow freely from my eyes, and I sank deeper into the chair and closed my eyes, making it appear as though Riven's shouting at me affected me to the point where I was afraid of him, when in reality, I was incensed that he was shouting at me in the first place. Riven, you simpleton. I'm sorry. Oriela pulled me into a hug, and I leaned into her shoulder, which is when I allowed my smirk to appear. I believe this lure Riven strategy is going to be simpler than I initially thought. 1, because I'm a phenomenal actor and persuader to the extent where I could probably convince someone that they've committed a crime they haven't actually committed. 2, because Oriela believes everything I say and will shield me even against her own mate. And 3, because Riven will do anything to make his mate content, which I could definitely leverage to my advantage. Oh, please, who am I deceiving? I can utilize all 3 reasons to my advantage, and I will employ them judiciously because I do not intend on botching this plan, and most of all, I do not intend on failing Alpha Kaelith. I made a solemn promise that I would serve him no matter what and give my all to him, and that is what I intend to do, even if it means causing pain to others in the process. I pulled out of the hug after a sufficiently long period and wiped away my feigned tears. Apologies. Oriela shook her head. It's not you who should be apologizing. She cast a pointed glance toward Riven, and he sighed before looking at me. I'm sorry for shouting at you, Shereise. I was just angry at what Kaelith did, and I unleashed my anger on you. It was inappropriate, and I'm truly sorry. I nodded. Wait until I inform my mother that an alpha apologized to me. Everyone laughed, and Riven started speaking again, much to my irritation. How is your mother coping with all of this? I don't know. She acts as if she's fine, but I know that she's distressed. She just doesn't want to show it. Perhaps she just desires to be strong for you. No kidding, Sherlock, I thought to myself when Riven said that, but instead, I opted for the desperate daughter act and stated, I know, but I just wish that she'd communicate with me. I've been separated from her for ages, and she's attempting to be strong. I don't need her to be strong. I need her to be my mother. I allowed my tears to flow freely, and I stood up from the sofa and walked out of the room, despite Oriella's and Riven's protests, but I just continued walking until I reached my room, where I quickly locked the door and wiped away the tears before sitting on my bed and sending Alpha Kaelith a mental message. Alpha Kaelith, I'm making progress. How much progress? It better not be disappointing, Shereise. I smirked. You'll be impressed. I'm well on my way to eliciting sympathy from Riven. At this rate, I'll have him isolated by the end of the week. Well, I must say, Shereise, you have definitely impressed me today. Thank you, Alpha. Has he suspected anything yet? I decided to omit my blunder, so instead, I merely stated, no, he suspects nothing. Very good. I'm proud of you. Continue what you are doing. Yes, Alpha, I'll report back to you later after the dinner. Wait, Shereise, I want you to do something else for me. What is it? Make him escort you to the meeting room. I looked at the wall, puzzled. He doesn't have one. Every alpha possesses one, Shereise. It simply requires discovery. But instead of searching for it, make him willingly take you. Okay, then what? He must have plans regarding the conflict and his assaults. I want you to examine them discreetly and report back to me what they are strategizing, so we'll be one step ahead. Do you comprehend what I am requesting of you? I nodded even though he couldn't see me. I comprehend completely, Alpha. Good girl. Don't fail me. He severed the link, and I sighed and lay back on my bed, but then I heard a knock on my door. Who is it? Riven. I let out a low growl. Can't he just leave me alone? I genuinely do not wish to converse with anyone right now, Alpha. I'm sorry. I understand. Just don't suppress things for too long. It's not beneficial for you. Neither is being disingenuous, but you don't hear me saying that to you, I thought to myself. I'll keep that in mind, Alpha. Okay, good. Oriela will come and fetch you for dinner, okay? Certainly. I heard his footsteps move away from my door, and I sighed. I know that this plan is going to be easier, but the question is, will I be able to maintain my composure? Will I be able to sustain my deception? I started contemplating all the things that could go awry until I came to my senses and dismissed the thoughts. I refuse to harbor any uncertainties about whether or not this plan is going to succeed because I refuse to fail my Alpha. If his content, then I'm content, and that's all that matters. Chapter 27. Oriela's viewpoint. If I had to describe this supper using just one word, it would simply be uncomfortable. I don't believe I've ever attended a meal where people are truly scared to speak, either because they're worried they'll upset Shereise with their words or because they're afraid they might irritate Riven. I decided to send Riven a thought message about how I felt. Honestly, this is so awkward, I don't know what to utter. He chuckled softly. And you think I would know? If you care for me, you'll ease the tension. I smirked at him, and he shook his head gently before speaking up, and I silently performed a celebratory dance at how effortlessly I got him to comply. I don't know why I hadn't attempted that before. I'm considering hosting a pack celebration. Everyone looked at Riven. Why? Well, primarily to welcome Shereise back to the pack, but also because I feel like I'm not sufficiently connected to my pack members. I smiled. That's thoughtful. He smiled. Thanks. Don't imagine you're escaping it though, Oriela. I groaned. But darling, you know I detest gatherings. Everyone laughed, and I placed my head on the table. It's not amusing. It's merely a social event, princess. I looked up at my father. I know, but you understand how I am with large assemblies, Daddy. You were in the drama club, Kari. How can you be apprehensive of crowds? I was 9, Mum. I had no fear. But now it's just I dislike it when everyone's gazes are on me, as if they're judging me. I sighed and ran a hand through my long, dark hair before leaning back on the chair and closing my eyes for a brief moment. Okay, look, we don't have to have a gathering if you don't wish to. I shook my head, and what kind of alpha female will I be if I don't even attend a pack celebration? Or even worse, cancel it. One that doesn't appreciate gatherings? I picked up my utensil and threw it at Riven. You're not humorous. He picked up the utensil and placed it beside his, and he looked at me and smiled. I'm sorry, but just because you're alpha female doesn't mean you have to be present at every single event that transpires in the pack house. I sighed and turned to my father. Daddy, what do you believe I should do? Riven is correct, sweet girl, but I cannot tell you what I think you should do. It's entirely up to you. Daddy. You are no assistance whatsoever. He chuckled, and Shereise spoke up. Please come, Oriela. I looked over to her. Why? Because I missed you. I haven't seen you for, I don't even know how long, and I genuinely want to spend some time with you, and what better way to do that than a celebration? I considered what she was saying and nodded. Okay, only because you requested it. You two have become quite close, haven't you? I nodded. Yeah, for some reason, I truly feel a connection with her, and I don't just mean a friendly connection. I'm talking about a sisterly connection, but I don't know why. That is peculiar, isn't it, Luther? Yeah, it's, strange. I looked at my father to see him glance at Layla briefly before putting on a smile, and I just looked at him oddly before turning to face Riven. So, when are you planning on holding this celebration? I was hoping for tomorrow. Tomorrow? Isn't that a bit soon? I believe the sooner, the better. Even though it's somewhat short notice for the pack, I feel that it would be in their best interest that the gathering is held sooner rather than later. Good choice, son. He smiled at his mother. Thanks, Ma. And I know this is odd of me to ask, but has anyone seen Adele recently? Everyone shook their heads. Nope. Do you even care? He shook his head. Not really, but even as an alpha, I still have to keep track of those who enter my territory, family or not. She's probably just wandered off. You know she enjoys doing that. He nodded. Yeah, I suppose so. I looked over at Shereise. Shah, may I speak with you for a moment, please? She looked a bit hesitant but nodded anyway and walked out of the room, and I got up and gave Riven a quick kiss on the lips before I walked out of the room as well, and I gestured for her to go upstairs towards mine and Riven's room, and she nodded and continued walking. We reached the room, and when I walked in, I locked the door behind me and put on my serious expression when I turned to face her, letting her know that from this point onward, I meant business. I believe you know why I wish to speak with you. She looked down and started fidgeting with her hands before she nodded her head. Yeah, but I don't want to talk about it. I just want to forget what happened. I sighed. How can you forget if you haven't actually told anyone what happened to you? You can't keep things bottled up like this. Alpha Riven expressed the same sentiment. She looked up, and I looked at her, confused. Why did you just call Riven Alpha? Because he is my alpha, and it's disrespectful to refer to him otherwise. I let out a low growl, and I could feel my eyes changing. What did Kaelith do to you? She shook her head. Nothing. I just realized that calling an alpha by his name isn't a proper thing to do. Yeah, it's not, unless they tell you otherwise, which we have. He taught me respect. Who? Kaelith. She nodded. Yeah. I ran my hands over my face and went to sit down on the bed while gesturing for her to do the same. You were already a respectful girl, Shereise, and Kaelith's teaching you about respect was pointless, and he had no right to do it. She flinched away from me and brought her knees up to her chest, and I saw a few tears fall from her eyes, and I sighed and reached out a hand to her, but that just made her move away from me again. Shah, what did he do to you for you to be like this? You know that I would never harm you. Why are you afraid of me? She shook her head. I'm not afraid of you. I'm wary. What is there to be wary of? You're surrounded by kin and companions. You have nothing to be frightened of. Just tell me what Kaelith did to make you so scared. No, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to tell you. I just want to forget about it. She started weeping. and my heart just went out to her because I remember her being an outgoing girl who generally wasn't afraid of anything, but now here she is, cowering away from anything that comes close to her, so I jumped to the only conclusion I had in my head. I took a deep breath and vocalized my presumption. Did he violate you? She looked up immediately and shook her head vigorously. No. He didn't violate me. I promise he didn't violate me. I let out a sigh of relief because that was the main thing I was worried about. If I found out that he violated her, I would personally locate him myself and kill him with my bare hands. Okay, can you at least tell me where he was keeping you? She shook her head. No, because then you'll inform Riven, and he'll pursue him, and I don't want that to happen. Why? He kidnapped you, Shereise. That's not taken lightly. I may not have been alpha female for long, but even I know that if a pack member is taken by a different pack, that's technically grounds for conflict. But I don't want a conflict to begin. I shook my head. I'm sorry, but the conflict started ages ago. When he stabbed me 3 times, the conflict began. When he trespassed, the conflict continued. And when he kidnapped you, the conflict was in full swing. He knocked out 3 of our pack fighters, Shereise, and you're telling me that you don't want a conflict to begin? It's absurd. Please, Oriela, please, call it off. I'm sorry, Shah, but it's not going to happen. The conflict has been declared, and I'm not going back on my word. She stood up and ran out of the room, and I just sighed and lay back on the bed. Oriela. I sat up and looked at Riven before lying back on the bed again, and he walked over and sat down on the bed next to me while running his hands through my hair, which was kind of making my wolf go wild, so I just pushed her down and focused on what he was saying. I came up to check on you and Shereise, and I just saw her running out of the room crying. What happened? She said that she didn't want a conflict to begin, but I told her no because it has already started, and I'm not going to call it off now. He nodded. She really doesn't want this conflict to begin, does she? I shook my head and sat up to face him properly. She genuinely doesn't, but I can't just call it off. There's no way that I'm going to let him get away with what he's done. I'm going to make sure that he pays for it. He took my hand in his. I'm with you every step of the journey. I smiled and leaned my head on his shoulder, and he kissed the top of my head before gently rubbing the back of my hand with his thumb in a soothing manner, and we just stayed in that position for the longest while, and all the while I was contemplating Shereise and what on earth had transpired with her. Shereise's viewpoint. I moved away from Oriela's and Riven's door, and I allowed my smirk to emerge. Phase 1 is complete. Now, obviously, you're going to assume that I genuinely do not wish the conflict to persist, but of course I do. It's the only way Alpha Kaelith can remain one step ahead and assault Riven. At least now that I know for certain that the conflict is going to continue, I can definitely attempt to persuade Riven or Oriela to take me to the meeting room and examine the plans and report back to Alpha Kaelith. But the question is, how? Shereise. I put on my sorrowful expression and turned around to face my mother. Yeah? Are you alright? Oriela told me what you said. Trust Oriela to inform my mother that I didn't feel sufficiently loved by her. I'm sorry, Mum, ever since I returned, you've been a bit distant. She sighed and walked up to me and hugged me, and I just rolled my eyes behind her back before hugging her in return. I'm sorry, Shah, I was just a bit startled and distressed. Well, you could have just told me instead of not speaking to me at all. Do you know how that made me feel? She pulled back and looked into my eyes before shaking her head. No, I didn't know how that made you feel, and I'm truly sorry for not considering your sentiments. I feel like a terrible mother. I shook my head. No, Mum, you're not a terrible mother, you're a wonderful one. She smiled sadly at me, and I gave her a reassuring smile back. I'm really fatigued though, Mum. She kissed the top of my head. Okay, good night, darling. Night, Mum. I gave her one last smile before walking off towards my room, and as soon as I walked in, I locked the door behind me and sent Alpha Kaelith a mental message. Alpha. Yes, Shereise. Phase 1 is complete. The conflict is definitely continuing. I am becoming more and more impressed by the minute, Shereise. I let out a proud smile and replied, Thank you, Alpha Kaelith. Do you know what your next task is? Yes, make them take me to the meeting room to gather as much information as possible about what they are planning regarding the assault on the pack. Precisely. Do not disappoint me, Shereise. I won't, Alpha. He cut off the link, and I sat down on my bed and started planning my next move. If I was ever going to get them to take me to the meeting room, I needed to elevate my approach to an entirely new level because I do not intend on failing my Alpha. Thank you for listening. Like, share and subscribe for the last part.